Even less. Welcome to the Easthampton City Council meeting for Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. The meeting tonight is being recorded and broadcast live via Easthampton Media on Charter Channel 193 and live streamed on Easthampton Media's YouTube channel. We thank Executive Director Jen Ramsey, as always, and her great team for their commitment to enabling civic engagement. All counselors and participants in this meeting are gathered remotely during the COVID-19 pandemic under an executive order by Governor Baker on March 12, 2020, allowing us to do so. I remind both the members of the City Council and of the public to remain on mute until recognized by the chair. Also, for members of the public, please remove your camera for the duration of the meeting unless you are participating in public speak. It's extremely distracting for me. Thank you very much, and we will now start the meeting. Barbara, can you call the roll?
Peg Coniff.
Here.
Salem Derby.
Present.
Erica Flood.
Here.
Omar Gomez.
Here.
JP Kaczynski.
JP Kwasinski here.
Okay. Tom Peak.
Here.
Dan Rist.
Here.
Lindsay Rothschild.
Here.
Owen Zarrett.
Present.
We will now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
the United States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. I will take a motion to approve the minutes of February 17th, 2021.
I
So
move to
moved.
approve the minutes.
Second.
Any further discussion? Barbara?
Peg Coniff.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Erica Flood.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
aye.
Lindsay Rothschild.
Aye.
Owen Zarrett.
Yes.
Okay. Now we will go to public speak. We do have a public hearing at 6:15. So we'll see how far we get in public speak before that meeting. For those of you who would like to participate in public speak on any other topic than what is in the public hearings, please remember that the City Council may only listen to your comments, but we cannot respond. We ask that you remain respectful and direct your comments only to the City Council. Tonight we'll be limiting public speak to 20 minutes. If you would like to speak, please select raise hand under the reactions option because Zoom changed it. Please remain on mute and keep your camera turned off until called. Before commenting, please state your name for the record, your address or your precinct. You will have 3 minutes. Tonight we have a public hearing at 6:15, so public speak will be paused and resumed after. So if you have something you would like to say during public speak, go ahead and raise your hand. I will then recognize you. Kay Collins, go ahead. Kay.
Apologies. Sorry, everybody. Hi, I'm Kate Collins. I live up 4.
We can barely hear you, Kay. Can you?
Sure, let me turn this up. Sorry. Is that better? Is that any better, Pat?
A little better. You're kind of going in and out. Give it a go.
Let me switch over to the
Better. Much
Is
better.
that better?
Yeah.
Perfect. Sorry, everybody. I'm coming right from work, so everything's a little scattered. Hi, I'm Kate Collins, Corp 4 Carroll Ave, Easthampton. I'm a member of ACON and a community member. So I just had a couple of things I wanted to mention, and I appreciate your time. I'll try to make this as fast as possible. I just wanted to speak in favor of the approval of changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. And I'm also wondering if you're planning to have any actionable steps other than just renaming the day, such as hosting educational events to make sure the community as a whole understands why we are choosing to acknowledge that the land that we stand on was occupied before Columbus or the British arrived by people rich in culture and tradition. Black History Month just ended. I didn't see any citywide acknowledgement of that. I might have missed something. But I'd be happy to work with the city to help develop an event next year, hopefully not virtual, but something that we can communicate to the city to celebrate Black history. I know with community and city council participation, we were able to begin raising the Pride flag in June to celebrate Pride Month. And we were also able to march as a city with Northampton Pride, which was amazing for the LGBTQ plus community. So I know that with working together, I'm sure that we could come up with something for both Black History Month and Indigenous Peoples Day, and I'm happy to throw in with whomever wants to work on that. Just very quickly, just speaking about actionable steps, I just wanted to mention that ACAN, as you know, is helping to deliver lunches to kids, and Mayor LaChapelle very kindly offered the use of a van. But that only happens if city employees are driving it. And we've had a couple of city employees, city councilors that have been helping out that are not able to do so now. So I'm hoping that we can leverage some participation with that to help to get those meals to kids. And we're also wondering too, I know that we're talking about the senior tax abatement and volunteer hours. And I just want to throw out there that driving for kids, whether, you know, hopefully this pandemic thing won't last too much longer, but I think that would be a great opportunity for seniors to pitch in and help as well with those deliveries. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Kay. Next up is Liz Perry.
Hi there, I'm Liz. I live in Ward 3. I had a couple things that I wanted to address for public record tonight. First off is on January 10th, Chief Alberti, the mayor, this council was asked to ensure that the Easthampton community, that no member of the EPD participated in the insurrection that took place on January 6th at our Capitol. And the fact that this has not happened yet has been weighing really heavy on my mind and on the minds of a lot of my friends and acquaintances that live in Easthampton. I find it tad disrespectful that the community that the EPD is sworn to protect and serve asked this question, and it's gone pretty much ignored. Personally, I don't think somebody with whose decision-making skills led them to participate in a violent insurrection to stop a democratic election is somebody that I want carrying a gun and a badge in this community. So I hope that that will be addressed soon. Secondly, I wanted to voice my support for Councillor Peake's affordable housing initiative. As housing and rent prices are being driven up in this post-COVID market, plans to help lower income citizens remain and feel welcome in Easthampton are so very necessary right now. And you know, the value of a person to our community is not measured by how much money they make. And if we lose some of these members, it's just going to be worse off for the city. So I am in favor of this first step to affordable housing, and I hope it leads to many more. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Next, we have Carolyn Cushing.
Hello, Carolyn Cushing, Main Street. And I have a couple of things under the topic of kind of communications, transparency, sending information out into the community, which was sparked by getting the robocall that I can pay my bills online. So that also had me thinking about a few things. First of all, kind of, you know, having come and watched Superintendent Leclerc and the group problem solving around communicating to the whole community that the food is available for children, the idea of a postcard going out to the whole city, I mean, I haven't gotten one. I don't know have that postcard got out so that people know that they have this food, because even when the pandemic ends, the economic problems will continue. Or using the robocall for notifying people. Not sure what that's happening. Also, I am wondering about the budget, the creation of the budget. I sat in the school committee meeting and the mayor referred to they're doing a different timeline. I realized I don't really know the whole timeline for the budget and what's happening with the budget. And I kind of pay attention to things, not as much as some people, but, and I don't know. And it would like we get our water bills, the water alert. Like, why don't we get something about alerting us to the budget and this is happening and to weigh in and what are some of the parameters. So those are examples and some particular things about communication seems to need to be happening so that people can get the information they need about food and being involved and where their the funds they pay in taxes are going to. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolyn. Megan Fowler, sorry.
Hi, that's okay. It's Megan Fowler. I'm a resident of Easthampton on Stanley Street. I just wanted to echo also my support for renaming Indigenous Peoples Day, and to echo what Kay said earlier, that I would love to see that followed up with some actionable steps. I'm curious what outreach has been done to Nipmuc Nation, whose lands we currently live on. And also, just as a parent of a toddler, I had no idea that food was available when we really could have used it. So I think to echo what Carolyn was mentioning too, the communications around the availability of food and resources that the city had and the school had weren't met by everybody. And I also am someone with access to internet and a lot of resources. So just to let you all know that I didn't get that message except through AKIND bringing that up. So I know it's been chaotic for everybody to have to figure out how to operate in COVID land, and I appreciate the efforts that have happened so far. And that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Okay, anyone else? Oh, okay. Hi, Brittany, go ahead.
Hi, sorry, I had a little bit of trouble connecting. I'm in a new setup. And I know the agenda was online and that schedules are flexible, but have members of the Taino tribe spoken yet today? And I noticed it's 6:11, so I figured public hearing start at 6:15. I know that we're only a few minutes away, but what are we doing right now? Because I didn't hear any Taino members speak. And
I'll explain. This is public speak, so you missed the preamble where this is the opportunity for people to speak on something other than what's in the public hearing.
that's what I thought.
So
Thank you.
So the
I'll
public
wait
hearing
until
will have all
then.
those other folks speaking.
Perfect. I'll wait until 6:15. Thank you.
Bye.
See no
Anyone
other
else?
hands, no other hands.
Okay. All right. Then we will conclude the public speak and we will move on to Barb, can we start the public hearing or is that not appropriate? 3 minutes early. Yeah, we're 3 minutes early.
Peg, you could probably quick do your city auditor selection thing.
Oh, okay. That's a good point.
It's a short little thing.
Yeah, it's a short one. Okay, so one of the things you guys may remember a couple of weeks ago, a month ago now, we created an ad hoc committee to address the vacancy in the assessor's office and to evaluate candidates for that position. Tonight, I'm going to ask the city council to approve another ad hoc committee, which will be to evaluate candidates for the auditor vacancy. And we have, like last time, we will have that committee members will be included from the appointments committee. So Councillor Rothschild, Councillor Kwasinski, and Councillor Flood. In addition, additional members to that committee will be myself, Peg Conniff, and also Greg Rowland, who is part of the CPA committee. So those 5 individuals will be meeting to select an auditor, the next city auditor from a list of applicants. So tonight I'd like to make a motion that the city council approve the creation of the auditor candidate selection ad hoc committee.
Just a point of information,
Okay.
if I may. I think Everything you said was, was entirely on target. But the one thing was, I think the committee will be charged with making a recommendation to the full council
Correct,
so that the full council can make the decision.
correct. Okay, was that not clear in what I said? I'm sorry. There's a motion on the floor right now, everyone.
I
So,
second the
Second.
motion.
okay, and now we can talk about it. So go ahead, Councilor Rist.
Two things, just for the public. The city council has 3 appointed department heads: the principal assessor, the city auditor, and the city clerk, which is why we had 2 retirements at the same time, the principal assessor and the auditor. So that is why we're doing this once again. Secondly, I wanted to thank Greg Rowland for saying yes to this. I know him well on the CPA committee. And for the public and the counselors, he's the controller for Deerfield Academy, has a great deal of fiscal knowledge in the operation of large budget situations. And I appreciated his work on the CPA. So that is why he is being appointed this evening, because he has that knowledge.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam President.
Any further discussion on the motion to create this committee? Okay, Barbara?
Salem Derby,
Aye.
Erica Flood,
Aye.
Omar Gomez,
Aye.
JP Kaczynski,
Yes.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
Dan Rist,
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild,
Aye.
Owen Zaret,
Yes.
Peg Coniff.
Aye. Motion passes. Great, thank you.
I move the public hearings be open, Madam President.
Second.
Second.
Public hearing. Any further discussion? Barbara?
Erica Flood,
Aye.
Omar Gomez,
Aye.
JP Kaczynski,
Aye.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
Dan Rist,
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild,
Aye.
Owen Zaret,
Yes.
Peg Coniff,
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is now open. We have one item, and that is the resolution to change the holiday from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, and I will hand it over to Councilor Zaret at this point. Or is it Councilor Derby, Councilor Zaret? I don't know, either one.
So both of us introduced it. So since I'm chair of ordinance, I'll just say really briefly, this is something that Councilor Zaret and I brought forward that we both feel really strongly about. I think that this is something that has been a long time coming and is due. And as we go forward, we'll elaborate the reasons why we feel that is true. So I'll turn it over to Owen to get us started here.
Thank you, Councilor Derby. So I'm very pleased to be partnering with Councilor Derby on this measure. This is something that's been in the works for me probably since before I joined the council, and then more actively within the last 1.5 to 2 years. So the issue at hand is the matter of celebrating Columbus Day and what that actually means. And it creates a false narrative of a hero, at least I believe, puts Columbus on a pedestal for discovering a world where people, many people, many nations and many cultures already resided. In the sense that we celebrate Columbus Day here in America, in the continental United States, it's also a false narrative because Columbus never set foot on these lands. He landed in the Caribbean, and I think some people that are gathered here tonight will talk more about that. And his trip of exploration was one more of conquest, colonialism, slavery, and genocide. And yet we choose to dedicate a whole holiday to him, and the narrative is placed on a person who created or was responsible for many of these acts. And the focus is switched away from the people who were here long before, who were discovered, and eliminated from history. In Easthampton and Massachusetts being named for the Massachusetts tribe, and in this entire country, continental United States, into Central South America, up into Canada and all the islands that surround us, there are, and there were also many more Indigenous people who lived here. If you look around our city itself, we have names of the people who lived here: Nashawanic Pond, the Manhan Rail Trail, Nonotuck Park, the Pascomic Land Trust. These names all come from people who possessed this land until we chose to come here, and in acts of colonialism and murder, take this land away from people. And so it's the least that we can do to refocus this discussion of this holiday that celebrates a hero who wasn't really a hero, to reframe the conversation to the Indigenous people of certainly who once inhabited our city, our state, our region, and our country, and celebrate the culture, the languages of people who either are not well represented, their voices are not heard, or really aren't here anymore. So through this process, I reached out to, through Indigenous Peoples Day, I believe it's .org, I got in contact with Madeline Monroe, who is also involved with the UAINE, which is the United American Indians of the Northeast. And she has been critical in terms of helping provide language for this resolution. Thankfully, to answer some of the questions earlier, we have been able to contact and collaborate with members of the Nipmuc tribe, the Massachusetts tribe, and a variety of other people and tribal organizations across Massachusetts. We were also very fortunate to receive letters of support from a variety of organizations, including the Western Massachusetts Commission on Indian Affairs, and Rhonda Anderson is here tonight and will speak a little bit to that. Initially, I introduced this as an ordinance because to address Ms. Collins' question, I wanted this to be actionable, but we did decide as an ordinance committee that there are certain things that we can't make our residents do, and there's some language, and we'll get into this later on, requesting what the schools do, which we also don't have authority over as a city council. So there's a lot of intent behind this, and that intent needs to be seized upon by the members of the council, by our residents, by members of the government within the city, and we need to make this actionable. That's how these things work. We can't necessarily tell people what to do, but we can take a first step by changing the name. What we did do in the ordinance committee is created observed holidays within the city. And so officially within our ordinance, and this is something that we have to wait till next week to discuss, the second Monday of, or is it the third Monday? The Monday previously known as Columbus Day in October, we are suggesting it be called Indigenous Peoples Day. And all of the language contained in the resolution are what we will encourage the people who live here, the businesses who are open and operate here, and the schools who are here to properly observe, to respect, and to reflect upon the Indigenous cultures that were here long, long, long before us. Councillor Derby is a member of the Wampanoag tribe, and it was very important to me to partner with him in this regard. It's something he and I have talked about for a while. So I will turn it back over to him, and then we have members here of a variety of Indigenous groups and people who I think would like to speak.
Yeah, thanks, Councilor Zara, and really great introduction. I think that as someone who is a member of a Massachusetts tribe, for me, it was definitely something that was very important as we started to bring this forward, because of the focus that I've always had on my heritage, and I hope my colleagues will indulge me. I did write a letter that I submitted with this, and I would love to read it. That kind of just tells a little bit of the background. So, and I apologize, it's kind of long, and I want to make sure everybody has plenty of time to speak, but I do think it is relevant to, what we're talking about. So if you give me 1 second here, I'm going to try to see if I can find it on my screen and read it, if you wouldn't mind. So to my esteemed colleagues of the Easthampton City Council, as a tribal member of the Wampanoag tribe of Gayhead Aquina, a federally recognized Native American tribe, I would like to wholeheartedly endorse the ordinance to establish the second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day, replacing Columbus Day. I find it is more appropriate to celebrate and acknowledge the people who made their lives here for thousands of years before Columbus arrived in the Americas. Columbus had a less than humane legacy that included slavery and barbaric tactics to control the indigenous people that he came into contact with. Many of the indigenous people had no immunity to European diseases and were wiped out by sicknesses that were introduced by Columbus during his travels. Thousands were killed with no regard from Columbus. On a personal level, I've had a strong connection to my indigenous roots since I was a small child. I was taught to be proud of my Native ancestry. My great-grandmother, Carrie Derby, was a Native American from the Wampanoag tribe on Martha's Vineyard. She left the island, Martha's Vineyard, as a child with her mom and sister and moved to Concord Junction in the 1890s. She attended Concord schools and became a talented singer and piano player at the boarding house her mother managed. She eventually left for Boston to sing and play music. She then became one of the first women to sing in Boston radio, definitely the first Native American woman. After returning to Concord, she met my great-grandfather, Benjamin Derby Jr. Ben was from one of the oldest families in the town. The Derbys farmed the same plot of land since they moved from Salem, Mass in the early 1700s. She raised 5 children in Concord and had a difficult life. She lost one of her children in a tragic accident. The family fortune was lost due to a lawsuit against my great-grandfather by his sisters, and the family business went bankrupt during the Great Depression. Despite all of this, she maintained a very close connection with her ancestral roots, her history, and her pride. She was a strong matriarch who was a beauty, a talent, and who persevered. My grandfather, Carrie's son, became an alcoholic as an adult and could not care for my father when he was a child. Carrie moved into the role of second mother to my father, and since my grandmother had to work to support the family, Carrie was the primary caregiver for my father. She raised him to respect and appreciate his Native roots and instilled in him a love of Native culture and art. I was lucky enough to get to know my great-grandmother Carrie as a child. I remember her telling me stories and asking me to tickle her feet. She lived to be 100 years old and left a great legacy. My life was profoundly shaped by my great-grandmother through my father. My father was a stay-at-home dad when I was a small child, and as my mom supported our family as an art teacher in Amherst, my dad would constantly tell me stories about Native people, and he surrounded me with Native teachings, philosophy, culture, and art. My father's passion for Native culture sparked him to become a scholar of tribal art from Native Americans and other indigenous cultures. He was inspired by his grandmother and embodied her passion for indigenous culture. My father became internationally known for his impeccable knowledge of tribal art and has worked with institutions all over the world. I grew up living my ancestry and learning to love the tribal culture from around the world. My life has truly been shaped by my ancestors. Today, we are in danger of losing the culture, the language, the art of our indigenous people here in Massachusetts. It's so important to normalize and celebrate indigenous cultures in the larger community as well as in Easthampton. This change is long overdue and well-deserved. I believe this change could help foster the appreciation for indigenous people that was instilled in me and inspire a new generation to learn about the first people that settled our region. So that's the letter that I wrote to the council, and for me, this is something that kind of normalizes something that's always been in my life and brings it to people that maybe wouldn't normally think about it. So I think it's really important, and I'm really proud to work with Councilor Zara to bring this forward.
Counselor Zaret, is there, did you have some speakers you wanted to?
I do, and I just want to, yes, so I guess if, with her permission, again, the individual who's been very helpful and been there with me from the start has been Madeline Monroe from the UAINE, and I would invite her to speak first, and then I think there's other people gathered here as well who we can ask to speak.
Do you guys, if there's a lot of you, do you want to raise your hand so we can recognize you, or what order do you want folks to speak in?
I'd like to turn it over to Madeline, and then
Okay.
probably people could just raise their hand from there if that's okay
Sure.
with you, President.
Madeline, go ahead. Can you unmute yourself, or, okay. Perfect.
Thank you so much. My name is Matoe Monroe, and I'm co-leader of United American Indians of New England. And I also founded the statewide Indigenous Peoples Day organization. We've worked on campaigns all over the state, including in Brookline, Cambridge, Newton, Melrose, Marblehead, Somerville, and more, and including Wellesley, which just yesterday voted to join the ranks of all the towns and cities in the state who are now celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day instead of Columbus Day. Thank you so much for letting me to speak with you here tonight. Columbus and his crew, as Councillor Derby just explained, were responsible for enslaving, murdering, and raping Indigenous humans whose homelands they invaded and claimed. The actions of Columbus and his men decimated the original peoples of the Caribbean and paved the way for the genocide and enslavement of millions more Indigenous peoples throughout the Americas in the coming centuries, as well as paved the way for the kidnapping and enslavement of millions of our African relatives. This is a matter of historical fact supported by many historians. It pains us deeply that there are people who continue to defend Columbus and refuse to listen to facts, people who deny our genocide. But this is a time when, thanks especially to the movement for Black Lives, there is increased awareness of racism and symbols of white supremacy and the need for them to come down. Upholding symbols of white supremacy does not align with the values of Easthampton or of any community that seeks to address longstanding issues of racial injustice. Glorifying Columbus sends a cruel message to Indigenous children. It also sends a wrong message to non-Native kids, encouraging them to believe that Indigenous peoples were somehow waiting to be discovered, and misrepresenting Columbus and his supposed heroism. A recent poll showed that 2/3 of non-Natives did not personally know an Indigenous person, and 40% thought that we were extinct. Indigenous people rarely appear in discussions about race or in the media in Massachusetts. Few non-Natives in Massachusetts have considered the history of the area prior to European colonization, and often do not even know the name of the tribal nation on whose traditional lands they live. Indigenous existence is thriving, and yet it is nearly erased. Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in the 1970s, and it brings something positive to the city in place of Columbus Day. It's a first step in undoing some of the harm caused by generations spent honoring Columbus. By replacing Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day in Easthampton, we seek to open much needed conversations about the history, survival, resilience, and contributions of Indigenous peoples in Easthampton and throughout Massachusetts. So we're asking tonight for the support of every member of City Council. As has been the case with other civil and human rights matters, such as bringing down the Confederate flag and instituting marriage equality, Maybe not everybody will understand the need for this despite all of our educational efforts, but we are counting on you tonight to listen and understand and do the right thing. Thank you, Pila Mayaya.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this topic? Go ahead and either virtually raise your hand or raise your hand on the. Rhonda Anderson, did you want to speak? Go for
it. Pagalagipsi, Ublami, Pangmokpak, Anu Oranga, Korinami, Anupiakshinaga Alak, Tanaksinaga Rhonda Anderson, Shabaktunga, Western Massachusetts Commissioner on Indian Affairs, and founder and co-director of Okateo Cultural Center. Kuyanak Nalak Nagifsi. Thank you for listening, Easthampton City Council, and thank you, Salem Derby and Owen Zaret. My name is Rhonda Anderson, and I am the Western Massachusetts Commissioner on Indian Affairs. I live in Coleraine, Massachusetts, which is on the traditional homelands of Sokoke, Abenaki, and Pecumtuck on the Pecumagong River, which is known today as the Green River. So I would like to also acknowledge that the Sokoke Abenaki of Southern Vermont and the Nipmuc Tribal Nation in Massachusetts as the state recognized tribes that are still here. I would like to extend my gratitude really to Easthampton City Council for exploring the creation of a resolution ordinance for making the much needed change from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. This change represents the recognition of Indigenous people that continue to thrive on this continent despite centuries of intentional genocide and intentional cultural genocide. We certainly do not need a holiday observing a man who brought colonialism, slave trade, genocide, rape, and hideous torture of Indigenous people. Columbus Day participates in the erasure of accurate histories of Indigenous peoples, people that have been here since time immemorial. So to honor Indigenous history, your neighboring towns of Amherst and Northampton, as well as other towns in Massachusetts, Brooklyn, Cambridge, Somerville, and Great Barrington, they have begun celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day. Massachusetts is on track to join 14 states in observing Indigenous Peoples Day. Alabama, Alaska, Hawaii, Idaho, Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, New Mexico, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Oregon, South Dakota, Vermont, Wisconsin, and the District of Columbia. There are 26 states that do not currently celebrate Columbus Day. There are more than 130 cities that observe Indigenous Peoples Day instead of Columbus Day, with many more joining on the right side of history each year. So I applaud every town, every school system and business, every state that chooses the right side of history by taking this vital step. So thank you, Councillor Zaret and Councillor Derby, for looking into creating a resolution inclusive of all residents. Kuyana. Thank you, Tavra.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak on this topic? Ella, go ahead.
Adelia, hi. So my name is Ella Nathaniel Alkevich. I live in Northampton. I'm a relocated Labrador Inuk, beneficiary of New Nutshava government. And so I'm a writer. And so I wrote a letter back in January when this first started. And I get nervous, anxious. So if I can just quickly read it, what I sent to the counselors. Dear sirs, greetings. I'm a relocated Labrador Inuk artist, poet, scholar, social justice activist, and writer. I'm a beneficiary of New Nutshava government with several college degrees. I'm a grateful member of the Western Mass Native community. My artwork was featured in the Post-Pause online art exhibit under my given name, Ella Nathaniel Alkevich. Last autumn, I participated in the I Shape mass group of the Belchertown Justice Collaborative. 4 of us, 2 Indigenous and 2 non-Indigenous, created a curriculum to educate others. The link can be found with the videos and books. The 4-page handout explains the importance of changing that holiday. Please take the time to look up the above link and discover how important it is before you make the final decision. I ask you please join the other cities and towns across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and stop celebrating that racist holiday in October. I understand it is being discussed tonight. Okay. This issue is important to the Indigenous people, Native Americans, and for your residents. Neighboring communities to the north and northeast of you do not celebrate Christopher Columbus. Columbus enslaved, killed, raped Indigenous women and children, and made young ones be sex slaves. How is that a person to celebrate? I hope you don't condone those violent acts. Changing the name to Indigenous Peoples Day will benefit your residents and neighboring communities. If you don't know, Easthampton has a history of Native Americans. And then I looked up and found a thesis from 1937 by this man, G.B. Dennis, and he wrote an industrial history of Easthampton. And so I'll just finish with this, because a lot of what's been said, I'm repeating. So the history, the land of which Easthampton is a part was purchased in 1653 from Chickwallop and 6 other chieftains. The total area covered what is now the 4 Hamptons, part of Montgomery and Hatfield. Its total cost was 100 fathoms of wampum, 10 coats, and the plowing of 16 acres of land in Hadley. In connection with this purchase, the Indians reserved the right to hunt when and where they desired, so actually they received a fair price in terms of the values at those times. So I researched more about Chickwallop and read the Indian Deed of All Lands, which you can find on the Digital Amherst website. So Easthampton is all native land. So it's just something to think about. I'm really happy to support and see you tonight. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Zaret, is there anyone else who would like to speak before I open it up to the public, and or if there's more, Councillor Zaret, from your presentation that you'd like to do?
I know Brittany was on before.
I see Brittany's hand.
Oh, okay, Brittany, sorry.
Hi, I would feel very comfortable sharing my notes for today and my notes from the last meeting, only if all of the Taino tribal members that are present tonight have been able to speak. I think they have a right to speak. It is Columbus who did all of these very violent things to their community. And then if they don't wish to speak, or when they're done, I'd like to go.
Is there anyone who would like to speak before Brittany? I don't see any hands.
I see Chalianaru is here again. She was at our last meeting and wrote a letter. I don't know if she would like to speak in representation of the Taino people.
Her hand is up.
Go ahead.
Hello, Daigwe, Datiauno, Kena, Ditiauno, Dairi Chalinaru. Good evening, my brothers and sisters. I am Chalinaru. I am from the Taino contingent. I'm part of UCTP and the Guainia tribe. I'm gonna make this short and sweet. As we all know, we're all trying to make that change from Christopher Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. I live in Newton along with my other tribal sister, who you could see behind me. We are the founders of Indigenous Peoples Day Newton, as we fought for that, and of course we won, and we're very happy about that. We all know Christopher Columbus did not step foot in the Americas. He got lost at sea and we found him. The heinous acts and the atrocities he committed on our people should not be celebrated, honored. It's a disrespect. It's horrible. I mean, at this point in time, this man should be forgotten. He should be wiped out. Anything you want to say?
I think it's time that we get rid of the lies of who Christopher Columbus was and of what he did. We don't want our children to learn these lies in the school system. We don't want our children to have to deal with feeling less than or invisible anymore. And there are plenty of descendants of the Taino people from all of the Caribbean islands, including Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Haiti, Bahamas, St. Thomas, and I'm pretty sure somebody on that panel knows someone from the Caribbean islands or knows someone who is of Taino descent. So we're here to support, educate you guys if you have any questions on who Christopher Columbus really was, because he was not a hero. He was a rapist, a murderer, a pedophile, not only to women, but to children and to little boys. And this is not the type of person that you want to represent or for your city to continue celebrating. Christopher Columbus does not represent the Italian heritage. He does not represent the Italian heritage. So that's all I want to say. Ha home.
Thank you. I see Reina Oduro's hand up. Brittany, I know you had wanted to go. Should we let Reina go first? Okay, Reina, go ahead.
Hi, yes, thank you. I'd like to first just acknowledge I live in Webster, which is home of the Nipmuc people. But I am also Taino and I'm a member of the Higuayagua tribe. And I would just like to say, I mean, sometimes you really have to just see it from someone else's perspective, right? So we as Tainos and we as Taino women are teaching our children the true history of Columbus. When we talk to them about what happened on the islands and the atrocities that happens and the genocide and just the terrorizing, right? So now imagine that's your child that you've told this true history to, and then they go to school and they're learning that Columbus is someone to be celebrated and all these wonderful things that Columbus did. And I mean, if you put yourself in that child's shoes, tell me how confusing that is to live in a society that celebrates a man who killed your ancestors, killed your people. I mean, this is what our children go through every single day. So just with that thought in your mind, that is how you should make the decision. The children are our future. And if we want our children to be in unity, we have to change these things that are continuing to cause them to feel less than and oppressed. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think I see any other hands. So Brittany, if you'd like to go.
Cha Natasawis, Brittany Piawi, Winnipeg Wally. Hi, my name is Brittany Littleleaf Wally. I do also want to express gratitude to your city council for exploring the creation of this holiday instead of course, Columbus Day. That is a much needed change. I'd like to repeat what I said at the last meeting with your community, just for those who may be here tonight that were not there last time. And as before, I'd like to say that I am going to explicitly say some of the things that Columbus did, which is very hard to listen to, but he did them and people celebrate him. So we need to talk about those things. So Columbus never set foot in what is today known as Easthampton. He did, however, spend time in the Caribbean, including present-day Cuba and the Bahamas. And while there, he committed insidious acts against local indigenous people, specifically even people today of the tribe of the Taino tribe. A pioneer of murder, rape, bodily mutilation, slavery, theft, violent colonization, and ecological damage, Columbus is today recognized as a forefather of systematically oppressive racism. Statues erected in his memory do not provide a proper platform capable of conveying this fact. They only help perpetuate an oversimplified version of his voyages. This oversimplified history is harmful to all and is difficult to resolve. It's challenging getting people to accept that they have been lied to, especially when that lie was perpetuated for years under the guise of United States historic holidays. Now, how I am involved in this? Well, Easthampton is ancestral homeland of Nipmuc. And of course, other local tribes are right next to it. All of the land that we're on is native land. In my Nipmuc community, we feel the pain of our sister nations that were harmed by Columbus. And we do feel the weight of his acts, despite him not being our specific colonizer. I know that we are tired of explaining that Columbus did not discover anything. Negative symbolism, such as a holiday celebrating Columbus, is destructive to Indigenous people and our cultures. They also make it increasingly difficult for our non-native allies to understand painful historical truths. Changing this holiday creates a wonderful opportunity to celebrate in Easthampton and step on the right side of history as protests for racial justice sweep the nation. Many other cities have already taken action to change the holiday to Indigenous Peoples Day, and I should certainly hope that Indigenous people are not celebrated only one day a year, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. There are endless action steps a community can take to properly engage with local Native tribes. And of course, there are many other available options that the community could focus on in regards to uplifting Italian history. The most important thing to remember is that this change would create a chance for people to move forward together in a positive way. Kadabadamish, thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Heather Lavelle, I may have mispronounced that, but your hand is up if you'd like to go.
Yeah, no, you got it correct. I'm non-native, so I just want to make sure that there aren't any other Native people waiting in the queue before I speak.
I don't see any other hands.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my name is Heather Lavelle, and I'm a second generation Italian American, and I live and work on the ancestral territory of the Massachusetts tribe. And I'm co-founder of Italian Americans for Indigenous Peoples Day. We're a Massachusetts-based group with members in Easthampton that we support Indigenous Peoples Day Massachusetts in their local and statewide efforts to replace Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you. Thank you to Councilors Zaret and Derby for proposing this really important change and for your refusal to continue to normalize the celebration in your community of a brutal colonizer. On January 6th, many of us were shocked by the white supremacist attack on the US Capitol. And I feel that we should be just as shocked and outraged by the fact that we celebrate Christopher Columbus, a white supremacist. This is not normal. There's absolutely no rationale from Italian Americans or anyone else that can justify the continuation of this holiday. Italians for Indigenous Peoples Day believes that a holiday that celebrates the resilience of Indigenous people is far more truthful and reflective of our values than one that honors one of history's greatest villains. We believe that any association with Christopher Columbus diminishes our culture and does not appropriately honor the struggles and contributions of our ancestors. We have listened to the voices of Indigenous peoples and learned the complete history of Columbus. We understand how the continued heroization of this man causes great pain and harm to them and compounds the intergenerational trauma that they carry with them today. And we also know that our children are harmed when they are taught that it's normal to celebrate this man. And in their defense of the holiday, some Italian Americans claim that the day is not a celebration of Columbus, but rather of Italian American culture. This is the same logic used by some who say that the Confederate flag is not a racist symbol, but an expression of Southern cultural pride. Neither is okay. If this holiday is truly about celebrating Italian American culture, we have ample opportunities to do so in October, which is officially recognized in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as Italian American Heritage Month. Some Italian Americans feel that the adoption of Columbus as a heroic figure commemorates a time when our ancestors overcame terrible ethnic and religious discrimination and became fully accepted into the dominant white culture. But many immigrant groups experience discrimination and violence while assimilating in this country. Italian Americans are not unique in this regard, and rather than using these experiences to justify their celebration of Columbus, we encourage our Italian sisters and brothers to employ the platform that our ancestors have given us to ensure that we are not repeating the same patterns of discrimination that they endured. And we also think it's very important to make its distinction between the discrimination Italian Americans endured and the attempted genocide and systemic oppression perpetrated against Indigenous people. This is settler colonial inflicted violence and enslavement and dispossession and exploitation perpetrated against thousands of diverse groups of people with their own unique and distinct cultures over the course of centuries. Also remember that Columbus was purposely introduced and firmly embedded in our country's founding mythology long before Italians came on the scene. So remember the District of Columbia, the Columbia River, Columbia University, all of those things were named in the 18th century. And Washington Irving wrote his mythologizing biography of Columbus in 1828. So really it's time for all of us who are part of this country's dominant culture to take collective responsibility for the events of our past, for the false and incomplete telling of our history, and for our misplaced adulation of Columbus. Too often discussions about renaming this holiday are centered around the feelings and concerns of Italian Americans. So let's please keep the focus on Indigenous people, what they need and deserve, and then what we all gain by choosing to celebrate them. And as Brittany said, this is a wonderful opportunity they are presenting us with to take a first step towards healing and reconciliation. And I ask that you listen to the people who are closest to the harm and do what is right. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for this? I would, at this point, open it up for anyone from the public who has anything they would like to say. Don't see any additional hands. Councillor Zaret, do you want to, or Councillor Derby, do you want to go ahead and
Madam President, Natalie has her hand up.
Okay, sorry. Natalie, go ahead. Didn't see you.
That's fine. Hi, everybody again. My name is Natalie Gomez. I am part of the BIPOC caucus for ACAI. I mean, this is a no-brainer. Having Indigenous Peoples Day shouldn't even, I mean, this is just, yes, absolutely. And I'm hoping that with City Council's push towards changing this, that maybe they will take into account the BIPOC people of Easthampton and making sure that the change isn't just for box checking purposes. This isn't just a renaming of a holiday, but this is bigger than that. So I'm hoping that the City Council will kind of absorb this and listen to the people who it affects the most, which is Indigenous people of color. And hopefully Easthampton can grow from this. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Anyone else from the public? or counselors? Counselor Gomez, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for bringing this forward. I think this is really important for us, especially for me being Puerto Rican, and in my DNA, I have Taino blood. So I think this is really important. First, I want to start saying that in Puerto Rico, we have 36 towns named by people there from the Taino tribe. I'm going to mention at least 3: Loíza, Caguas, and Humacao. It's more than 3, but I think it's really important. In our language today, we're still using some of the Taino words. I'm going to mention a few ones: papaya, canoa, humacao, hamaca, and huracan. I'm going to say in English now. Canoa is a canoe, hamaca is hammock, and huracan is hurricane, and barbacoa is barbecue. So we're still using some of those words from the Tainos, and I think that's amazing. In 1592, there was the first trip from the Christopher Columbus to discover. But I'm going to talk about the 1593. That's when he arrived to Puerto Rico. He wrote a few letters to Spain because Spain was supporting his trips to go to the Caribbean, right? So in one of those letters, he was talking about what he saw in Puerto Rico. And what he saw in Puerto Rico, there was, just give me 1 second, I'm going to read it here. In his second trip, Colon traveled to a number of the islands of the Caribbean. And one of them was Boriquen, that is Puerto Rico. Boriquen is the name of the Taino called Puerto Rico. In the letter that he sent to the kings of Spain, he described that he saw in Puerto Rico, Boriquen, and they described those humans that they eat humans too. That, of course, there was a lie. And also he described that there was a cultivate and well care of lands. So bringing this point, I just want to say that he didn't discover anything. He just colonized the people who were there. There was more than 50,000 Tainos when he arrived to Puerto Rico. And with his presence, when he went to Puerto Rico, he made everybody sick. He made them sick. He slaved them. He put in hard work, and they wasn't prepared for that. What he did was bad. What he did wasn't nothing that we should celebrate. But this is just a step. I think this is just a step because we have to work in a lot of stuff. And one of the things is education. Our curriculum in Puerto Rico, here, and most everywhere in the world, we every time that they're talking about Christopher Columbus, is like a hero, and we have to stop that. We have to teach the real history and what happened in the Caribbean. What happened to the Taino wasn't fun, and no one should be proud what Christopher Columbus of Spain did to them. Again, thank you. I think you guys bringing this forward is amazing. But again, this is just one step of a long journey that we have to keep going. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gomez. Anyone else from the council who has any questions? Councilor Flood.
I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight and sharing your personal stories, especially to Councilor Derby. And I also want to say thank you to Rhonda. It's been a very long time, decades in fact, but you are one of the first people to actually educate me on this when I briefly lived up in Shelburne Falls and I had the chance to meet you. And it's very nice to see you again after so many years. Your courage and commitment to come out and share all of your personal stories tonight is very touching. And I wholeheartedly support this. I think we're far beyond the timeline of making this change. And I just want to applaud you all for your hard work and commitment to making this difference in the world. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flood. Any other councilors? Councilor Kwasinski.
I'd like to thank everyone for appearing and taking this matter so seriously. That is the education of everyone in our community to the histories of the various peoples here in what is now our nation, what was Indigenous peoples' nations. To say that we understand history, I think is a huge mistake. To say that we are exploring various histories and educating ourselves to the histories here, I think is one of the highest honors we can grant those who came before us. So I would suggest everyone do everything within their power to read more about the histories, to understand and to challenge our communities to teach more about what is the truth and stop the lies. I would like to reach out and say thank you to Howard Zinn for writing A People's History of the United States and including in the first chapter, if I may, a section on Columbus, what he calls the Indians and human progress. I recommend that to everyone. I listened very carefully to Rhonda, Madewin, Ella, Brittany, Chilinaro, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kwasinski. Any other councillors? Councillor Rothschild.
Hello, thank you everyone who came and shared their stories, and this is a very moving night and it's so important. Thank you, Councillor Zaret and Councillor Derby for bringing it forward, and thank you, Councillor Gomez, for sharing your some Taino history with us as well. I just want to echo people who have spoken that this is just the first step and education is key. I was really heartened when I told my son, who's 8, that we were going to be discussing this tonight, and he already knew about it, and his teacher had already discussed Indigenous Peoples Day this past October. So that was like a step in the right direction, but it's just the beginning. And also, I think Natalie Gomez brought it up, but the connection to, this isn't a historical story. White colonization and white male supremacy pervades in all of our history and the stories that we hear, and we don't hear other stories. And so I'm really, really grateful that you came and shared your stories, and I just want to hear more stories. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothschild. Any other councillors? One more call for the public. Councillor Zaret, do you have, there was a letter or a couple of letters. Do you want to read those into the record, or what did you had mentioned that you had a couple of letters?
I think I was referring to letters that were sent previously, and I believe I submitted those into the record in the packet. I believe that all of those people are here tonight. There was, as you know, President Coniff, a letter from our superintendent, and I don't know if you'd like to read that or if I should.
It's up to you. I have it in front of me, but you can certainly read it.
I don't have it in front of me, and
okay.
And I've my goal here is, I think most of the things that have been needed to say have been said, so I don't want to speak much more.
Okay. I see Councillor Peak has his hand up. Councillor Peak.
Just as a technical point, if that was sent to all of us, then that letter is already a matter of public record, isn't it?
Yes, but the public has not seen it. I was just going to do it for the public. Dear President Coniff and council members, this is from Dr. Allison LeClaire, Superintendent of Easthampton Schools. I'm writing this letter to express my full support of the City Council resolution to support the establishment of Indigenous Peoples Day in Easthampton. As a school district, we strive to look critically at the story of Columbus and more importantly, to teach the story of European colonization and the development of the transatlantic slave trade that resulted. We also look at Indigenous nations throughout history to today. Furthermore, our teachers work diligently to review curriculum and make adjustments to lessons as necessary. We are proud to support and endorse your efforts in this matter. Sincerely, Dr. Allison LeClaire, Superintendent of Schools. All right. Anyone else? Counselor Zaret.
Just before if there is no one else, just before I make the motion, President Coniff, I do want to echo what many people have said here, the speakers that gathered and comments from the public, that this is just a first step. And everyone here is right that we can't just check a box. This is the beginning of a movement and an effort within our city, and hopefully to encourage other people regionally who have not done this to appropriately reflect upon and celebrate this day if this vote passes. And I am calling on anyone interested and on how we can find ways to observe this within the city to please reach out and we can coordinate. And certainly I'll be reaching back out to all of the very helpful representatives and people who spoke here today. Thank you so much for tolerating all of my emails and questions and contact, and for coming tonight, because that was important, that those are the voices that needed to be heard, which is why I don't want to speak much more except to just navigate here. So that's all I wanted to say, is that this is the first step of a journey, and I'm looking forward to taking it together with all of you.
Before I presume you're going to read the resolution, and then you're going to read the numbered items after that in terms of the expectation that the city council is agreeing to in the resolution, correct? And I know that you've made some changes, I think, to what was in the original packet. Do you want to point those out before you read the full resolution, or do you want to read it all through? I just want to make sure that people recognize where you've made changes to what you sent in the packet.
So the only change I'm going to recommend, President Coniff, and you can let me know what would be the appropriate parliamentary procedure. I spoke with Cindy Kwasinski from the school committee, and while she did send her support as well, as did the superintendent, in regards to operations vis-a-vis the city council and the school committee, the language about regarding these public schools, she did make, Chairman Kwasinski did make a good point that we cannot tell the school committee what to do, and she recommended that we change the language. So if you look down, it's there's a be it further resolved, the Easthampton Public Schools will observe this day. I'm going to recommend an amendment that the city council encourages them to observe that day, only based on, but my understanding, and you can correct me if it's wrong, is we would need to make the initial motion to accept the resolution, and then after, if there's a second, then offer that amendment. Is that?
In theory, yes, but I think, Barbara, can he just make the, I mean, we haven't made a motion on anything, so can he use different wording, or does he have to use the same wording?
To me, I think you could just be a further resolve that Easthampton Public Schools encourages them to, I mean, I would just make it's just a minor small change if you wanted to do that, and then just read it.
So the way we would like to read the resolution is, I was going to read the whereas, and Councilor Derby is going to read the be it further resolved. So Councilor Derby, I had sent you a marked up copy, and where the be it further resolved, before the Easthampton Public Schools, just that the Easthampton City Council encourages the Easthampton Public Schools to observe this day.
That's what I have on the one I.
Oh, perfect. President Khan, if there's no further discussion about that matter, I would love to make a motion.
Please.
Wonderful. Okay, in the form of a motion, I would like to ask the Easthampton City Council to accept the following resolution to support the establishment of Indigenous Peoples Day in Easthampton. Voted that the city adopt the following resolution. Whereas Columbus Day has been celebrated unofficially since the early 18th century and was officially made a federal holiday in 1937 to be celebrated on the second Monday of October, with MGL Part 1, Title 1, Chapter 4, Section 7, Clause 18, setting aside the second Monday of October as a Massachusetts holiday, and MGL Part 1, Title 2, Chapter 6, Section 12V, providing that the governor declare that day to be Columbus Day. And whereas Columbus Day commemorates the landing of Christopher Columbus in the Americas, specifically on the Caribbean islands of the Bahamas, on October 12, 1492, and later on Hispaniola, present-day countries of the Dominican Republic and Haiti. And whereas the first voyage of Columbus to the Americas initiated the transatlantic slave trade, journal entries from Columbus show his desire to enslave the indigenous populations of the Caribbean, and he subsequently imprisoned and transported many hundreds of people to this end, including trafficking women and girls as young as 9. And whereas Columbus's second voyage of 1493 was one of conquest, wherein 17 ships were led by him to the New World, and his governorship of the Caribbean instituted systematic policies of slavery and extermination of indigenous populations, especially the Taino Arawak people, whose population was reduced from approximately 8 million to 100,000 during Columbus's reign, being further reduced by the continuation of his policies until near extinction in 1542. And whereas the example of the Taino Arawak people is merely indicative of the policies of Columbus and his men, and all told, millions of indigenous persons were exterminated in the Caribbean basin alone. And whereas through the introduction of European diseases may account for some of these deaths, starvation and overt extermination policies were mostly to blame, and thus these atrocities cannot be reasonably attributed to forces outside of the control of European colonists. And whereas the devastation of indigenous populations would lead to the kidnapping, deaths, and enslavement of at least 10 to 12 million African people, and the profound effects of the transatlantic slave trade and African diaspora continue to be felt to the present day. And whereas the cultures of the indigenous peoples of the Americas are worthy of being promoted, their history is rich, diverse, and worthy of celebration, and the actions and policies of European colonizers of the Americas actively destroyed and suppressed parts of these cultures. And whereas indigenous peoples of the lands that would later become known as the Americas have occupied these lands since time immemorial. And whereas the city of Easthampton, Massachusetts, the city, has a history of opposing racism, this racism serving to perpetuate high rates of indigenous poverty and leading to inequities in health, education, and housing. And whereas the city wishes to honor our nation's indigenous roots, history, and contributions. And whereas the District of Columbia, states of Alaska, Louisiana, Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, New Mexico, Oregon, South Dakota, Vermont, Wisconsin, and localities including Somerville, Mass, Cambridge, Mass, Brookline, Mass, Marblehead, Mass, Northampton, Mass, Amherst, Mass, Portland, Maine, Los Angeles, California, San Francisco, California, Denver, Colorado, Portland, Oregon, Portland, Maine, Seattle, Washington, Columbus, Ohio, and many more have adopted Indigenous Peoples Day as a counter celebration in lieu of Columbus Day to promote indigenous cultures and commemorate the history of indigenous peoples. And whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in Geneva in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas, and whereas in 1990, Representatives from 120 indigenous nations at the First Continental Conference on 500 Years of Indian Resistance unanimously passed a resolution to transform Columbus Day into an occasion to strengthen the process of continental unity and struggle towards liberation, and thereby use the occasion to reveal a more accurate historical record. Councilor Derby.
Okay. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council votes as follows. 1, to establish the second Monday of October henceforth be commemorated as Indigenous Peoples Day in Easthampton rather than Columbus Day, in recognition of the position of Indigenous peoples as native to these lands and the suffering they faced during and since the European conquest. Be it further resolved that the people of Easthampton observe Indigenous Peoples Day by reflecting upon the dispossession of homelands of villages of the Pakumtuk, Nipmunk, and other indigenous people of this region who live here for millennia prior to the arrival of European settlers, and upon the history of the other indigenous peoples who have lived in Easthampton, and to celebrate the survival of indigenous peoples against all odds, as well as to celebrate the thriving cultures and values that indigenous people have brought and continue to bring to our city and the wider community, and to reflect on the meanings, honor, and celebrate the names and language that are utilized for the places in our city and community. Be it further resolved that Easthampton shall include Indigenous representation from the city inasmuch as possible, and will also seek representation from Indigenous organizations in the area, as well as other Easthampton community representation from segments of the community such as citizens, schools, nonprofit organizations, and businesses. Be it further resolved that the City Council encourages the Easthampton Public Schools to observe this day with appropriate exercises and instruction in all schools around the time of Indigenous Peoples Day, to the end that the culture, history, and diversity of Indigenous peoples be celebrated and perpetuated. Be it further resolved that the City Council encourages businesses, organizations, and public institutions to recognize and observe Indigenous Peoples Day. And be it further resolved that the city clerk shall ensure that the Massachusetts tribe at Pongkutpog, Mashpee, Wampanoag Indian Tribal Council, the Wampanoag tribe of Gayhead Aquina, the Nipmuc Nation Tribal Council, including the Hassanamisko and Natick, the Assanet Band of Wampanoags, the Chippewatic Wampanoags, the Chowbungagungogmog Nipmuc, and the Pocasset Wampanoag, the Herring Pond Wampanoag, and the Seekonk Wampanoag, all of which include descendants of those people indigenous to Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Commission of Indian Affairs, North American Indian Center of Boston, Indigenous Peoples Day MA.org, United American Indians of New England, Massachusetts Center for Native American Awareness, as well as the Easthampton School Committee and the Daily Hampshire Gazette, the Springfield Republican, the Reminder, receive a suitably endorsed copy of this resolution or take any action relative thereto.
That was a motion. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Barbara.
Okay, Omar Gomez.
Super yes.
JP Kaczynski.
Absolutely, yes.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Yes.
Lindsay Rothschild.
Clara KC, yes.
Owen Zara.
Yes.
Peg Coniff.
I was just going to say yes, but now I have to come up with something. So I'll say an enthusiastic yes.
Salem Derby.
Yes.
Erica Flood.
Okay.
Dramatic pause, yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Well done.
Madam President, I move the public hearings be closed.
Second.
May I just make one quick comment before we close the hearings?
Sure.
I just would like to say that as I was reviewing for this evening's meeting, I happened to have a discussion with the chair of the school committee about this matter, who promised me that she takes this issue very seriously, and in fact believes that this, by bringing it to the school committee, which has the authority over all policy within the schools, that this is an opportunity for the school committee to ask for reviews of curriculum in these specific matters, to review making a more accurate historical record. So, and this gets the community and gives the community an opportunity to raise consciousness again and again and again about these matters. So take it on a good word that this will be discussed thoroughly and be open to the public. And she probably won't tell you, but she is of 1/8 Indigenous ancestry. The problem is because there was so much discrimination at the time, her great-grandparents were married. Each of them were 1/2 Indigenous, which made her grandparents 1/4 and her 1/8. The point I am trying to make here is there is so much of the history that is lost because of this discrimination. And I hope that we're able to track it down, to learn more, and to help others do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kwasinski. For those who are new to the Easthampton City Council, Councillor Kwasinski is married to the chair of the school committee. So they know each other pretty well. Okay,
I'll repeat my
Councillor
motion
Rist,
to close the public hearing.
do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Barbara, thank you, everyone. Barbara?
AP Kaczynski,
Aye.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
Dan Rist,
Yes.
Lindsay Rothschild,
Yes.
Owen Zaret,
Yes.
Peg Coniff,
Yes.
Salem Derby,
Aye.
Erica Flood,
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Public hearings are closed. We now have a couple of presentations, although I do not see Paul St. Pierre here from the Telecom Advisory Committee.
Madam President,
Oh, yes.
I would like to ask for a 5-minute recess.
I was going to say that. I just wanted to see first if Paul was here, which I don't see. Mayor?
Madam President?
Mayor?
Yes, Paul is unable to join us today. I'm not sure Councilor Peak might have a way going forward, but he was very disappointed and wants the council, to send his regrets on this important report.
We can reschedule him for another day. Thank you for that, Mayor. Yes, so we will now take a 5-minute recess. If you could all be back at 7:30. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience.
That was really interesting, actually.
Very moving. Yes.
I especially appreciated, I forget her name now, that she talked about Italian American people accepting this quite a lot more than I would have thought. So that was very informative.
That's Heather. Yeah, that she's been wonderful. I mean, I was just very pleased and moved for everyone's help, and
Who are we missing? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
You did say 7:30.
We have them all.
Just for the record, these tattoo, they came from the Taínos.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yes.
That's nice. All right.
I didn't think I could like you more.
We have about 1 more minute and then we'll start up again. Oh, I almost started without you, Lindsay. Okay, it is 7:30. We are back in session. On the agenda now is a presentation from the Senior Tax Work-Off Committee. Councillor Kwiecinski, do you have any preamble you would like to make in advance of that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. About a year ago, we put forth a motion for the council to study the Senior Tax Work-Off Program here in the Commonwealth, which is Chapter 59, Section 5K. This legislation had been approved by previous council, and there had been no move forward, and there appeared to be no way to move forward on helping to study the situation so that we could have a review and perhaps enter into a senior tax work-off program in our own community. So the council had voted unanimously to establish our committee and to review what has been occurring elsewhere in the state and to discuss whether or not there seemed to be a way to craft a program that made sense for our community. And I believe we'll have an opportunity to hear from the members and answer questions about the program and have a lovely presentation by Councillor Coniff on the program. So at this point, I'd like you just to get a chance to meet some of the members of the committee. So I'd ask folks to maybe just say a word or two about themselves and to introduce themselves to the council. And I'll start with Brendan Rogers of the Council on Aging.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brendan Rogers, and I'm the director of the Easthampton Council on Aging. And as part of the Senior Tax Work-Off Committee, it's been a pleasure working with everybody, and I hope you guys enjoy this presentation. I think this will be a wonderful benefit to our folks and the people that we serve at the Easthampton Council on Aging. So thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Who's next? Oh,
sorry, I was muted. Jennifer Gallant, our city treasurer, please.
Hi, it's been an honor to be on this committee. I think this is an awesome opportunity for the residents, and I think that the presentation will speak for itself, but it's really been an honor. to be part of it, and I look forward to participating in it.
Joe Banis.
Hi, I'm Joe Banis. I am a resident of Easthampton and also a member of the Board of Directors of the Council on Aging.
Jay Andrzejczyk.
Jay Andrzejczyk, member of the committee. I've worked on several different projects in my time. This, to me, is one of the most important. I know it is just a phenomenal opportunity for us as a community to offer relief where it's most needed.
Thank you, Jay. I don't believe we have Stan Diamond here, a member of the community, but Stan Diamond also worked with us. And also on the committee is City Councilor and Council President Peg Coniff, to whom I will turn over the floor at this time.
All right, you guys know me. Okay, so let me pull up, I'm just gonna do what looks like a bigger presentation than it really is to you guys, if it'll open. So of course, now it's not opening. Please hold on one second. Okay. All right, let me share this and you guys tell me if it is large enough. And I know it's not yet, so hang on.
That's a little too big.
Okay, hang on.
Great before.
Could you see when I had it up before?
Yes, it was a lot smaller.
Okay, I'll change it to presentation then. If I can. Can you still see it?
We see it. It hasn't changed its size though. I don't know if
Give it a
that
second.
matters.
Give it a second. I don't know. Did it change?
No.
Great. Man.
Well, maybe leave it and we'll just have to live with it.
Well, okay, I did change it, but apparently it's not changing. Hang on one second. Technical difficulties. Sorry, guys.
When in doubt, reboot.
Yeah, no.
Not the system, but the program.
All right, well, we'll go with it. Sorry, it's so big. I can't figure out how to make it smaller. Oh, yes, I can. Wait. Please hold. Is that better?
You stopped sharing it. It's not shared now.
I feel like we're in a Facebook video humor thing. All right, give it one more shot.
We don't see the image.
Oh, brother.
Peg Coniff has started screen sharing is all it says.
Huh. All right. I'll give it one more shot and then you may just have to listen to me as opposed to see it. Hang on.
I could possibly try mine for you.
Can you see that?
Nothing, no.
Wow. Bizarre.
You want me to share it?
Yeah, if you can. Sure.
Why don't we give Councilor Rist a chance here? Oh my gosh.
This is why we had a 5-minute recess. It's fine. I will go fast. This won't be a problem.
I just have to get to it. Just give me a second.
I don't know why it's not working. I'll try it one more time. Can you see that?
No.
Okay, then there's something screwy.
Okay, I'm going to start sharing.
Okay.
Where is it?
This is riveting YouTube watching right now.
You see this now?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Can you go to the next page, Dan?
Oh, it's too fast, sorry.
That's all right.
Is that small enough for, is that large enough for everybody?
That's good. Yep.
I think so. Yep. Okay. So we've already talked about the folks who were part of the committee. We've been meeting, as I say, for a number of months, and we've made a lot of progress, and we kind of want to talk about that tonight. So if you could go to the next slide, Dan. So what is the Senior Tax Work-Off Program? Well, it is a program that, in addition to the other abatement programs that are out there, this one is to help property owners who are 60 and above age in place by reducing their property tax liability. What it does is it allows this senior property owners to volunteer for work within the city in exchange for reduction of property taxes. Typically, these volunteers will augment city staff, or they will fill holes that we didn't even know we had, or they will work on special projects that perhaps may need a couple of extra individuals. They are treated as any other employee would be. They will be Corey checked, and they go through a interview process to determine employable skills related to open positions that we may have. Next page, Dan. And the why we're doing this is back in 2018, the Council on Aging, along with the Center for Social and Demographic Research on Aging, conducted a study, and they found that the #1 issue in Easthampton for seniors is economic insecurity. And the median income is lower. There's a lot of concerns around the affordability of continuing to live here. As we all know, taxes are going up. So it's a struggle, and it was a struggle that was validated through this study. So one of the recommendations to come out of this study actually was for the community of Easthampton to establish a senior tax work-off program. So that's kind of why we're going down this path. The committee itself, this is just a sampling of the municipalities that we reached out to and got information from. There are well over 100 communities within the state that participate in the senior tax work-off to varying degrees. And you can see here from the sampling, some of them don't offer the full amount. They may only offer $500 as the tax abatement. They may offer the full total, which is $1,500. They may restrict the number of participants. And you can see in the last column the tax lien impact that their various programs have to their bottom line budget. Hold it, Dan.
Sorry.
That's all right. Back in October, I held a meeting with all of the city department heads around this topic. And the committee itself had proposed that we talk to them about their thoughts on this, because largely these folks will be working for them. And so we wanted to give them the first idea around what this is and their feedback on it. It was great feedback that we got from all the department heads. Some of them started to already think about ways that people could assist them. And there were a couple of folks who reached out to me immediately afterward who were ready to, they were loving the idea and they were ready to rock and roll. We're just not there yet, but we certainly will bring them on board when we get to a place where this council agrees to move forward with this. Next page, Dan. So the question of how do you identify volunteer opportunities? Well, a lot of times, and we, even now with COVID, you could probably point to some areas where you could have people doing some tasks that perhaps didn't exist before, or work that is very repetitive, needs to happen, not incredibly skill-based, but it is a lot of work that might go undone by current staff or gets pushed to the side, that these seniors could come in and take care of. There are seasonal changes in workloads. Seniors could fill those gaps. Special projects, as I mentioned before. And again, not necessarily high skill work, but it also lends itself to, if you have certain skills and a department might need that, let's match you up. So there's a whole array of how volunteer opportunities can bubble up. Next slide, Dan. So these are just kind of some examples that we just kind of were talked about. Senior center, receptionists, drivers, food prep. I think some of the public even mentioned, drivers for meal delivery, libraries, administrative work. So a lot of, in fact, part of what we want for this program is that it would be run by volunteers, so that the work itself and the bringing together and making sure all the paperwork's done and managing all the work that has to go into it, making sure that things get to the assessor's office for all of that, that could in fact be handled by the Council on Aging with volunteers who are in fact part of the program. So a couple of communities do that, so that it's just a 100% volunteer run organization. Next slide, Dan. So these are some examples that we have found in the various communities. Animal shelter, well, we don't have that, but that's kind of the thought process. Maintenance, I talked to John from Parks and Rec, and yeah, they always need maintenance people, school greeters, library assistants, all sorts and variety of individuals could be brought in to augment existing staff. Councillor Peak.
I was just wondering, since we do have an intermunicipal agreement with Westfield for the use of their animal shelter, could something work out where somebody goes down there and works there and that counts? I mean, plenty of our stray dogs and cats do
end up there.
Shelter.
Yeah,
just a thought. I mean, I just sorry to derail.
No, we have a lot of scenarios like that we are ultimately, some of those things we will run past, various legal expertise, but nothing is really off the table. What is on the table is that you have to live in Easthampton, you have to own property, and you have to fall within a certain income strata. Next slide. Okay, so what we are recommending, because we don't know what we don't know, and we're in the middle of a pandemic, we wanted to kind of start this off as a pilot program, and the pilot would run 3 years, 2 to 3 years, and it would begin at the time when we were putting this together. We thought it would begin July 1st of this year. We might not make that deadline, but you get the concept in looking at these numbers of where we want to go with it. We want to keep it kind of with an initial beginning and an end, so that we can evaluate it and make changes, and then have it become a permanent part of the landscape of the city. Taxpayer property owner must be 60 years of age or older. Applicants must reside in and own the property for which the tax credit is sought. We have some dates in here, but again, until we actually start the program, those dates may shift and change. The amount of the property tax reduction is not considered income for state income tax, but it would likely impact federal income tax. It will have to be declared. So and I'll show you where in our paperwork, we specifically request that applicants reach out to their financial planner if they have one, to find out how this may or may not impact them personally. Next slide. So the maximum exemption from the law is $1,500. Each community has the ability to make whatever maximum they want. That number, $1,500, is the only thing the city council can change by vote. But right now, we would like the pilot to run the full $1,500 for each participant. And that is based on, it's a combination of how many hours you work times the prevailing minimum wage in the state and or the feds at the time that you are working. So right now, the minimum wage is $13.50. That will change next January. So if someone was working this year, they would need about 111 hours of volunteer work to achieve the full 1,500. We are in our proposals suggesting that proration would be allowed, and that if you are only able to say work 50 hours, you would still be able to get an exemption related to 50 hours times the minimum wage and whatever that came up to be, that would be your exemption. So we created that flexibility. Not all communities allow that, but we wanted to do that. Income limitations are really guided by HUD, and I think these are the same numbers that the CPA uses for exemptions for seniors of low to moderate income. Those numbers would change depending upon how the numbers change out in the world, but right now, I think those numbers are relatively accurate. We are also suggesting in this pilot that we allow up to 12 participants, no more than 12, again, because we don't know how this will go, and we want to create a certain level of management and guardrails around this as we're working through it. So we wanted to limit the number to 12, but that's a pretty good number. Like, I hope we get 12. We do know that this will reduce the tax lien, and that lien has to be made up by the rest of the taxpayer in the city. So we expect that if all 12 positions are filled, that would be an $18,000 reduction in the tax lien. That equates out to about $2.45 for the average single family home owner in Easthampton for their tax bill in a year. So next slide. So again, this is our timeline. We have already done the presentation to the department heads. We have done the presentation to the mayor. This is the presentation to you folks, and we will be pending the outcome of this. We will move forward, the committee will move forward into beginning to develop some of the more detailed pieces of this, like jobs, job descriptions, and we will need to, some help from the department heads, but per the mayor's suggestion, and we agreed, we want to the degree that we can, get a lot of this work done first, and then bring in some of the department heads because they are a little busy right now, but we also want to make them less busy. So we can kind of work a little bit to make that happen. We eventually want to work with Easthampton Media to begin to build PSAs and to get this out to the public so that they know that it's coming, so that we can explain what it is, so that people fully understand what it is. And then we want to, and I know they're already working on this, that we want to make sure that this is part of the 2021 budget and that it is factored in. And I know Jen Gallant is already working on that aspect of it, because we want to be able to start during the 2021-2022 fiscal year. Next slide. So these are really hard to read, and I'm not gonna go necessarily through all of them, but these are the documents that we've put together that really outline the program. So we speak about eligibility, and these are things that would be out on the website for people to pull up and read. So we talk about eligibility, and we identify all the ways that a person who is going to participate in this might need to know. So one of them is that they have to agree to be Corey checked, that it's limited to $1,500, that they have to supply references, just like any other employee, but we want to make sure that it's very clearly spelled out. So these documents, while in draft form, are pretty close to where we kind of want them to be, and hopefully you guys have looked at them, and if you have any suggestions, we'd love to hear them. It talks about the hourly rate and what that equates to in terms of hours. It talks about the volunteer period. You know, if you wanted this abatement for fiscal year 2022 tax bill, what months and when you'd have to complete your work. So right now, we're saying September 20th of this year through April 30th of next year would be the time frame when this work would have to happen. And again, because we don't know, those dates may have to shift, but that was kind of the starting point. I'm not going to go through all of this. Some of it was repeated on the slide before, but it basically walks everybody through what this program is and how to apply for it, where you send your application. And if you go farther down to the next slide, it talks about the kinds of work that you might have the skill set for. What kind of things do you do? What have you done in the past? How could we use your skill sets? The other, on the right-hand side of the slide, is a financial data sheet that would basically, we would need that to know and validate that they fall to within the income levels. So they would have to disclose their income in this particular form. And then the last one is a participant agreement where we would ask them to sign so that they fully understand what they're getting into, that they are an employee, that it's an at-will position, that indeed they could be asked not to work anymore if something untoward happened, that there's a commitment from the individual that they do acknowledge they need to be Corey checked, what the hourly rate is, how many hours that equates to, the income limitations, all manner of what they're getting into. Those are what those 7 bullets are. And again, that's just to make sure that everyone is fully aware of what this program is and that there is work that has to happen, and that work has to align to their skill set and what jobs we have open at the time. So the last slide is really just kind of talking about, again, our first year dates that we had. We'd like to launch it in July. We'll see. Create communication, start to take applications, begin to start the interview process, and begin to align folks to open positions, notify them, make sure HR is on board. We've already talked to Emily, make sure HR is on board regarding all of this so that all the typical new employee boxes are checked by HR, because again, while they are volunteering, they are in fact an employee. So we have here September 21 through April 30th. Those dates may change depending upon COVID. And then the assessor would take the hours, and we would have to report to the assessor and validate that in fact this person worked X number of hours at this rate, and they should appropriately be have a tax abatement of $1,500. So there's a flow and a sign off that has to happen within the city and within the financial aspect with the assessor and the departments and all of that. So we haven't worked out all of the details, but those are essentially the timeline that we have right now. And that was a lot, and I apologize for going so fast. Do you guys have questions, comments, concerns? Councilor Peak.
First of all, this is awesome, and I love the presentation. I'm just to make sure that I'm straight. When we're saying a tax abatement, that's like, that is the amount that's being reduced from the taxes, right? Like if they get a $675 tax abatement, they owe $675 less dollars in property tax.
Yeah, so the way the caveat to that is that in fact, federal taxes will be taken out and Social Security and all of that. So while they may work $1,500 worth, the net might be $1,475 or something like that.
Yeah, okay, so but whatever's left just comes straight out. It's not some like, oh, well, okay, cool. Thank you.
It's like any other abatement that they would get.
Councilor
That's
Riss?
a risk.
Yeah, my concern, and I think you addressed it, was administration of the program. And I believe you said that under Brendan, volunteers, the entire program would use the volunteers themselves to administer it. I'm still a little concerned about that because if we don't, obviously there's only 12 participants. So can you explain that, Brendan, a little bit more in the sense that with the volunteers you're talking about are people that are not on the program that are part of the senior center? I mean, I'm just wondering who's going to administer this? My concern was putting too much of a burden on you if you're the administrator for this. There's a tremendous amount of work here, and I want to thank everybody for that. But I also want to be careful that we're not creating a huge problem. Although it's only 12 people, that's not a lot of research and everything.
Yeah, well,
so I'm just wondering who are the volunteers that are going to administer this?
Yep. I saw Joe. Joe, did you want to answer that?
Sure. Well, we found a number of communities where, you know, after a certain number of years, they have volunteers who basically run the program. I think in our case, for the first year, we wouldn't be at that point because we haven't brought any volunteers on to train them up to be able to manage the program. But certainly down the road after, you know, during the second year and certainly the third year, you know, we would be looking for potential volunteers who could bring the skill sets that would enable them to manage the program. So not in the first year, but certainly in the following years.
Well, that makes sense. Thank you. Very good.
Sure.
Tom?
Yeah, one question. Again, love everything about this. When you're looking at the 12 people, if in the first year of the pilot, there is a sense that there's a lot of interest in this, would there be any thought of increasing that number in year 2 of the pilot, or are you sticking with the fixed 12 through the 3-year pilot?
I see Jay's hand. I don't know if you want to address that question.
Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that we would want to expand it if there was a resounding turnout for it. Absolutely.
So I guess my follow-up question is, I guess President Conniff, would you mind just reporting to the council about how many applications this receives?
Yeah, I think absolutely we'll be giving kind of an ongoing, especially during the pilot, an ongoing kind of update on how it's going. And the only circle back we would have to make is to ensure that both the mayor and the treasurer have embedded any growth into the next annual budget. So, you know, if we go to 25, then that has to be built in because that would be a tax lien, and then we just have to make sure it makes it into the budget.
Councillor Flood.
I absolutely love this program. I'm also just thinking here about this idea of growth and numbers and sort of pondering what happens if it gets really popular and we do have to offset these abated numbers. So I'm sure there's been discussion, but I think I just also have to ask out loud, like, is there a possibility that a volunteer could work 1 year? And I know that the initial numbers is only $2.45 per taxpayer per year, but I'm sort of in a quandary of if this program becomes very popular and you can only volunteer for 1 year, but there's so many volunteers that the next year your taxes are actually increased after you've received an abatement. Do you hear what the question is? And it's just a devil's advocate sort of question.
I think we saw that this was going to be a program where it would start off small so we could kind of take a baby step into the water and see how it all felt and how it worked for our community. And then look at the budget year to year and make determinations at each year. And that would be a process, both I think for the council to discuss and for certainly the mayor to weigh in on and decide if this makes sense. What we're really doing tonight is discussing the program and whether or not we will endorse that program and make a recommendation to the mayor. Councillor Coniff.
So one of the things that other communities do is that they, once they're fully on board, they cap it. So that's a conversation. And at what cap do we do? They also have wait lists for people who want to do it, but we filled the quota. And so there are also some communities who say if you've worked in the fiscal year 2022, you can't work in the next one unless there are not enough people. And then you can, but we try to keep it, you know, maybe every other year, or so that everyone can participate. Maybe everyone can't participate in the same year, but they get on a wait list and maybe they are the next year. But we don't want it to be the same 5 people for 5 years, the only ones getting tax abatements. So there's capping that we can do. There is also, the city council has the power, you know, if the finances got wonky and we had so many people, maybe we lower the abatement just a little bit to create, you know, a certain level. I'm not saying that we need to do all those things. I'm saying that those are tools and levers that instead of saying, oh, we can't do the program, that we can do some other things. But right now, I think pretty much to a person, the entire committee wants $1,500 out of the gate and as many people as we can get in there to participate.
So I would just add to that. I think when you looked at what was happening in the other communities, we're really, the program we're proposing is really small compared to what other communities are doing. I think we're the second smallest on that list with an $18,000 investment. So some communities do $32,000, $40,000, all the way up to $150,000 investment. And that's really something that I think the community will weigh in on. I saw Councillor Owen Zaret next.
Yes, just quickly a comment, first of all, from start to the point we're at. I guess it's not finished yet. Exceptional job, both in regarding the recommendation and President Coniff, great presentation. I wanted to ask a question, and I don't know if this was discussed in your meeting, so you have to forgive me. And I can't take credit for this. This was actually brought to me by Jay, who's here. Was there any discussion, and it sounds like based on the mechanics of how this works, this might not work, but were there any discussions about allowing kind of city adjacent organizations like 501c3s to potentially enter into agreement with the city to act as sites where folks could volunteer? I'm thinking particularly in this regard with an organization I'm a member of, Easthampton Neighbors, where they could enter, the organization can enter into agree with the city as a volunteer site. And I'm guessing from the way this works, the answer is no, but I don't know if that was discussed or something that you thought about.
The way I remember the conversations, we did bring up the subject because we wanted to have as much impact on the community as possible. And what you mentioned would create that kind of impact. The difficulty is this is designed as a municipal program and is really pretty much, for the most part, a program that works within the various departments of the city. So I think you kind of answered your own question there. At least the way it's formed now. Would there be other opportunities? I certainly think there are, and there may be ways to extend, but that's something to be further explored. But initially, our initial impression, if I'm summarizing it correctly, was really the departments are the focus. Anyone else care to comment on that one from the committee?
No, I think that's right. I mean, we did talk about it, but because of the way this is built and because we're starting out as a pilot, we kind of want a little bit more control, I think, too, to have it be very much within the walls of City Hall right now so that we can kind of see where it's going to go. But I would suggest that down the line, those tangential type organizations like Easthampton Media, Easthampton Neighbors, things like that could also participate. And the library can participate now.
Councillor Peak, and then Councillor Gomez.
I was just wondering, you know, given that there is a sort of an income ceiling on people who can participate, if there are more than 12 people who sign up, is there any sort of preference given based on people's economic circumstances?
The way we saw it was, I think the first goal was to maintain the incomes level that we established. And then from there, once that income level is established, there wasn't, I think, discussion about differentiating among those incomes, but rather, I think the practical effect will be, is there a real match for the work that needs to be done? Are the job descriptions and the people applying for those jobs compatible? Is there a good chance for success? And I think that was our main focus at this point, to get a program off the ground that is serving the needs of the city. Anyone else on the committee? Councilor Gomez?
Thank you. Just kind of following Councilor Peak question, maybe it's for clarification about the income limitation. At the report that you give us, say married couple, $61,760, $60, and for the single over a little more, $54,000. That income is just from the couple or the single. So my question is, if one of the grandkids or one of their kids still living with them because they couldn't find, or they rent their, I mean, they're living with them for any circumstances. And now instead of the household income is 61,000, now is 150,000, but that the whole household members income is going to count as an income, or just the income of the two seniors?
The way this has worked in other communities and the way we see it working in Easthampton, this is a good question. We just kind of give an abbreviated version with a single person and one married couple. There could be more folks and the household income could be higher. So the range of household income kind of went up over $100,000, but I think that was for 8 people, up to 8 people. So it could increase, but it's increased based on the number of people. And would be specific to what the federal government sets for affordable housing here in the city. And usually they set those statistics in April. Joe, you have something else to add?
Yeah, the HUD guidelines that we pulled those numbers from contain data up to a family with 8 people total. So, I mean, in the interest of not having a lot of numbers on one slide, you know, we just had the single person and the husband and wife, but certainly, you know, there are data for a number of dependents where that income goes up depending on how many dependents you've got.
Any other questions from councilors?
JP, I saw Jen's hand up earlier. I don't know if she wants to speak now.
I did not see it. Thank you. Jen, no. Okay.
No.
I'm all set. I actually, Peg answered the question I was going to comment
on. Councilor Rothschild.
Hello. This is going back to Dan's question. First of all, of course, I love the program. Seems like city people doing what, you know, city work. So it's cool. I meant I'm sorry, I'm getting tired. Dan asked earlier about the administration of it, and we kind of got off on the topic that in the following years that the volunteers will manage it, but I don't know if we really answered in the first year how it would be managed, whose plate that would be on. Was that answered?
The way we looked at this, it would be very heavily managed by, I mean, primarily managed is probably a better way of putting it, by the Council on Aging and also the City Treasurer's Office, because they mainly have jurisdiction over several matters. Of course, it'll require some interface with the assessors and with the personnel department.
I know managing volunteers is a task in and of itself. So
and the question did come up about the Senior Tax Work-Off Committee or some group to kind of be there at least for the initial years of the pilot program, or perhaps for the pilot program, to be there, since they have had a great deal of experience in the subject, to continue kind of in the role of advisors and board, someone to bounce off ideas. Brendan, did you have some additional thoughts?
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to put out there is that it's not going to be me acting alone on this program. I've already talked to the COA board, and we already have a couple of people who are going to be involved in the subcommittee to help us get through this initial year, and then probably going forward even outside of the pilot. I think it would be a great subcommittee for our COA board to have. So it won't be me for sure alone on this.
JP?
Oh, sorry, Councilor Rist. I was looking at the other side of the screen. I missed you.
All I want to say is I'm not as concerned, because the committee did a good job limiting the program to 12 people. If it was 50 people, it would be very hard the first year. But since it's only 12, and that might be for 2 or 3 years even, I believe that you'll manage it well, and you'll get a sense of what you need to do to manage it. So I'm not too concerned. I was initially, but I think what Brendan just said about the COA board and everything, I think it's going to be fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rist. The mayor of the city will be instrumental in approving the program, in moving forward with the FY 2022 budget, where this will need to be incorporated should the council recommend and the mayor agree to insert the program for the 3-year pilot. Councilor Coniff, did you have any further thoughts? I would be ready to make a motion if you thought that would be appropriate.
I don't have any further thoughts, which is shocking. And I was going to suggest, if you'd like to move in right into the motion, that would be great.
I'd like to move that the city council recommend the mayor of Easthampton initiate in fiscal year 2022 a 3-year pilot senior tax work-off program for Easthampton, as proposed by the Senior Tax Work-Off Committee and endorsed by the City Council of Easthampton.
Second.
Oh, is this me? Motion in a second. Any further discussion? Barbara.
Before I take the roll, JP, could you please email that to me?
Sure.
Okay. Tom Peak?
Aye.
Dan Rist?
Yes.
Lindsay Rothschild?
Yes.
Owen Zarrett?
Yes.
Peg Coniff?
Yes.
Salem Derby?
Aye.
Erica Flood?
Aye.
Omar Gomez?
Aye.
JP Kaczynski?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for everyone on the committee. What a great job hanging in there through the pandemic, coming to the meetings. We have a lot more meetings to do, but Thank you.
Speaking of which,
Yes.
in addition to thanking everybody, if I may, Councillor Coniff, make a note that the next Senior Tax Work-Off Committee meeting, will get you right back to work, is next Thursday, March 4th at 6 p.m.
March 11th?
I'm sorry, March 11th, 1 week from today, from tomorrow, rather.
Okay.
March 11th.
At 6 p.m.
At 6 p.m.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you to the committee. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Council. I appreciate it.
All right. Yay. We are through the communication and correspondence. And the next item on the agenda, Mayor LaChapelle for Mayor Communications.
Madam President, telecommunication thing, was that?
No, we're not. No, he's not here.
Also, we're not doing it. I'm
Postponing that. Yep.
Madam President, if I might, I just, during this period of communications from elected officials, wanted to share one bit of information.
Sure. Sorry about that. Yes, go for it.
No, it's okay. Just, I know it's been a long night, so thank you for your patience. I just wanted to share and thank Jen Ramsey, Executive Director of Easthampton Media, for staying on top of internet connection issues. And she did forward me the information, and I wanted to make sure the public is aware that the FCC on February 25th unanimously adopted a report in order that established the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. This is a $3.2 billion federal initiative to help lower the cost of high-speed internet for eligible households during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The program was created by Congress. So very briefly, who is to benefit, or what is the benefit? It's up to $50 a month discount for broadband services. It's also a one-time discount of up to $100 for a laptop, desktop computer, or tablet purchased through our participating provider. And it is limited to one device per household. Just briefly, they hope that eligible households will begin enrollment before the end of April of 2021. I have registered as a community supporter and should be receiving updates as information becomes available. But there is a website, www.fcc.gov/broadband benefit. And folks who want to go there and register themselves could receive updates. So at this time, it's a bit unclear as to how to gain access, but that information should be rolling out soon. So again, it's www.fcc.gov/broadband benefit. And I'm really hoping that some folks in our community will be able to take advantage of that discount.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Flood. Could you forward that over to Barbara so she can include it in the minutes?
Yes, sure thing.
Thank you. Okay, any other communication before we move on to Mayor? Oh, Councillor Peak.
I was just going to say that, unfortunately, Paul St. Pierre is not going to be able to be here for this presentation, but for anybody, I'm going to, this whole thing got a little bit chaotic, but I'll make sure that a copy of the report finds its way to everybody prior to, it's not, wait, was it in the agenda pack?
It was in the agenda.
Okay, then I'd encourage everyone to check it out if you haven't already, because we put a lot of time into it. Yeah, that's all.
And I'd like to invite Paul back.
Yes.
Whenever it's convenient for him.
Yeah,
No
it's a health thing, but I think we can just figure it out. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Mayor.
Thank you, President Coniff. I have two items. One is my state of the city, which I put off by 2 months, hoping to gain some insight into the fiscal future of the city, the state, and the country. I have enough and feel like I can give a full state of the city it's pre-recorded, and the plan is for it to be broadcast on next Wednesday, the 10th, at 6 p.m. I'll confirm that up as we get it set up with Easthampton Media, but yes, State of the City will be March 11th at 6 p.m. and then also put on the website as well as YouTube channels and Facebook and all of that.
Mayor, you just said May 10th and then you said May 11th. May 11th is
No,
Thursday,
March,
May 10th.
March.
Or I meant either way, March, May.
Yeah.
Is it the 10th or the 11th?
The 11th.
Wednesday's the 10th, Thursday's the 11th.
Oh, it's Wednesday the 10th.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, takes a village. Takes a village. And then my second item is actually around it's actually about Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. I have a proclamation that I would like to read at this point, and then have some additional information after. So that said, it is a proclamation recognizing March 10th, 2021 as Tibet Day. Whereas on March 10th, 2021, Tibetans throughout the world will gather to commemorate the 62nd anniversary of the Tibetan national uprising against the brutal annexation of their country and pay tribute to more than 1 million Tibetans who have lost their life in the struggle for the freedom of Tibet. And whereas the annexation and ongoing suppression of human rights and freedom in Tibet and the intentional marginalization of the Tibetan language, culture, and identity should continue to be a concern for all freedom-loving people anywhere. And whereas on December 19th, 2018, the Reciprocal Access to Tibet Act was signed into law, calling for an end to China's isolation of Tibet and providing American citizens, including Tibetan Americans in Easthampton, with the same opportunity of access to Tibet as enjoyed by Chinese citizens visiting our country. And whereas on December 27, 2020, the Tibet Policy and Support Act was signed into law, dramatically upgrading the United States political and humanitarian support for Tibetans in key areas, and making it an official U.S. policy that the Dalai Lama's secession is strictly a religious matter that only His Holiness the Dalai Lama and his followers can decide without the interference from the Chinese government. And whereas the local and regional community of Tibetan Americans welcomes the passage of the Tibetan Policy and Support Act and urges the State Department to robustly implement the programs and directives in the above bills to address systemic and egregious human rights abuses occurring in Tibet. And whereas in recognition of the importance of the Tibetan Plateau as a source of the 8th largest river system in the world, impacting more than 1 billion people in Asia, China's reckless development policies are devastating Tibet's fragile environment, including major glaciers and rich biodiversity, putting the whole planet at risk. And whereas in the last 2 months, Human Rights Watch have reported the death of a 19-year-old Tibetan monk, Tenzin Nyima, and a 51-year-old tour guide, Hunchuk Jimpa, under mysterious circumstances soon after the release from Chinese police custody. And whereas the Regional Tibetan Association of Massachusetts urged the UN Human Rights Council to investigate growing reports of torture in Tibet and the death of Tenzin Nyima and Hunchuk Jimpa, and whereas the city of Easthampton is home to a small but vibrant community of Tibetan Americans who have contributed to the diversity of our culture and tradition. And whereas to pay tribute to the brave men and women who have given their lives for the cause of freedom in Tibet, members of the Regional Tibetan Association of Massachusetts will carry out a walk for Tibet from Amherst to Northampton. And now, therefore, I, Nicole LaChapelle, Mayor of Easthampton, do hereby recognize the local Tibetan American community's plea for justice for the people of Tibet on this 22nd anniversary of the Tibetan National Uprising Day, and proclaim March 10th as Tibet Day. And further, by hoisting the Tibetan national flag from March 10th to March 20th, 2022, to help cultivate awareness for all residents of Easthampton. In witness thereof, I have set my hand and affixed the seal of the city of Easthampton, Massachusetts, on this 3rd day of March 2021. Submitted, Mayor Nicole LaChapelle, Easthampton, Massachusetts. I thank the regional the president of the Regional Tibetan Association of Massachusetts, Serzing Dunhap, for bringing this to my attention. And I'm happy to do it. I would also just want to add comment around this, and certainly own my past predisposition to resolutions and recognizing different communities and activities, and wish and hopes for social justice. To just say I'm predisposed to do few of them. However, especially the conversation that I had around this proclamation, voices that are not heard, whether they are small children who want more recess or something, acknowledging in the voice of a city government the brutalization of a people or a country that's ongoing, in spite of calls from our own federal government and the UN. It is right and it is just that their voice and words belong in our public record. And I know that that seems far for some people from the business of this city, but if the city is truly going to be vibrant and inclusive, then everyone has a voice at this meeting, regardless of how they say it and what in what terms. So with that, I guess, epilogue, I invite people socially distant to join us on March 10th let me get the time right, at 5 p.m. at 50 Payson to hoist the Tibetan flag. The marchers they saved the best for last, so it's Amherst, Northampton, and then they're going to drive from Northampton to Easthampton, and at 5 p.m. and I'll read the proclamation again, and we'll have some history about the uprising. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions of the mayor from anyone? Councillor Kwasinski.
I, for one, and I think on behalf of the full council, would like to thank the mayor for bringing this to our attention and for bringing the seriousness of the national scene, the international scene, right here home to our community. So thank you, Mayor.
Likewise to all on the council. Thank you for tonight and especially.
Any other councillors? Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. So now we're going to move into the reports of standing committees, but we're going to change the order a little bit. We're going to start with the property committee because we do have something that we need to take care of in terms of discussion around easements. So for the property, Councillor Zaret, if you would like to make your report.
Thank you, President Coniff. We met Monday, which was just 2 days ago, but it feels like much longer. And this was for the purpose of discussing a couple items that all are related to each other. One was regarding general easements around the One Ferry Street development. We had authorized the mayor to enter into negotiations with One Industrial Lofts back in 2019, but the easements that were negotiated were temporary, and there was a request given to us to allow these to be made permanent, which makes sense given that the city will need ongoing access or easements to certain areas in those parcels and vice versa. So that's one. And the planner and Mr. Michon will be able to talk a little bit more about these. And then two, are necessary easements needed to be granted by the city for Eversource access in order to bring power to buildings around that development as well. There was some initial concern about whether that second item was relevant to what was introduced in the packet, but after a lengthy conversation and a letter from the city solicitor, they seem to be one and the same. And the more we discussed it, I agree. And I think the planner sent out some additional information for the supplement to the packet. The committee discussed both of these. We voted in two motions, one regarding the general easements and one regarding the easements for Eversource. They both passed 3-0. Councilor Kwasinski did bring up, as we have always discussed, just to make sure that there will be ongoing access for municipal access, such as fiber, et cetera, with the Eversource easements. And that probably falls more within the actual negotiated contracts. So without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to the planner, who's been instrumental in this discussion, and Mr. Michon is here as well, just to explain a little further, and he has some diagrams and such to show us, I believe. So President Kopp, I'll turn back to you to invite the planner, if you will.
Sure. I almost called you Councilor Bagg. Planner Bagg, if you would like to do an introduction or presentation.
Sure, yeah. I would like to show a map, but I think it's like the kind of thing where, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words, so I'll try not to say 1,000 words. I think Councilor Zara did a great job of the overview. This is not the first time that the council's kind of seen this concept, and it's certainly something that we anticipated all along. It's part of sort of the large nature of that project. The changes that have occurred since a year or more ago were that the easements changed from temporary to permanent. There's more of them. There's more easement areas shown, and you know, the size of the easement areas has grown a little bit, just to make sure that we're covering the things that need to be covered with easements. And then, you know, an important aspect of this relates to the rail trail. So in a second, I'll pull up a map, but a lot of these easements wrap around the back of Ferry Street, around the back of One Ferry Street, which is really where the bike path is. And there's also, you know, the city's sewer line is back there, and that's where some of the utilities will run. So, you know, that's an important just element that we talked to the rail trail committee. And there is an ability for the rail trail to be closed for, you know, a relatively short period of time during the busy season, and then, you know, up to 14 days in the off season, to ensure that the developer can have access to certain parts of the property to make that happen. So we brought that to the rail trail committee, and they were, you know, appreciative of knowing that if the rail trail is closed, there's a 30-day notice requirement. to the chief of police, the rail trail committee, and the mayor's office. And there's some provisions to make sure that there's detour signs if it's a full closure. So all that's kind of built into the language. So what I'm going to share now is a map of the proposed easement. So there's a lot of them, but they're really broken into two categories. There's the city land, where we're giving certain rights and access to the developer. And then there's the developer's property, where he's giving the city and the public access. So the blue band on the bottom is the area where we have the new multi-use path along Ferry Street, the railing and the parking. So some of that straddles private property. And so part of this easement is to give the public the right to use the parking and use the bike path. I mean, that was always anticipated. The blue area along the right side of the page is the future phase of the private development, where there will be a bike path extension coming off of Ferry Street up to the top of the page, which is the rail trail. And there'll be an area of public parking, public access via the bike path. And so those are, those are really important for the city to be getting those easements from the developer. And so likewise, the kind of band around the top, the different colored band, is a lot of it is utility easements to ensure that the utilities can come off of Love Field or from city property and cross over and power the private development. So it's pretty common. This is pretty standard type of easements, but it has just evolved over time. And so the city solicitor wanted us to bring it back to council because of the changes. Then the other element is more specific. So you can see this kind of the purple band starts on the left and goes around the top of the property. That's a general area where we're approving and giving the right for access for vehicles, maintenance, and utilities. And then the secondary component of this is an easement directly to Eversource for them to actually put their equipment and materials underground. And so if it's okay, I'm going to show that document very briefly, and then that'll pretty much constitute the initial presentation. So this is related to the Eversource easement, and I've made some additional annotations for the record so that this could accompany the vote for the Eversource easements. And the things that I've added are along the top. It's just called Exhibit A, and this is showing the approximate Eversource easement areas. So they created these orange boxes to just show that if you look at the bottom of the page on the left, that red square, it's a piece of electrical equipment, and then the utility lines go underground and it wraps around the back of the property. Most of this stuff has already been installed in terms of the conduit, so it's pipes underground. And before Eversource will put their lines through, they need to have the easement secured through the city. And so the request is for council to authorize the mayor to execute the Eversource easement, which we don't expect there to be deep negotiations or to have that be very in-depth like this other set that took a while to negotiate. So I think with that, I would offer potentially the developer to say anything that he would want to say, and then obviously answer questions.
Mike, Mishan, if you're still there. There he is.
Yeah, so I don't know, Jeff, I think you pretty much spelled it out. I mean, if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
No, I'm not seeing that anyone does, Mike.
Okay.
Okay, that was easy.
Jeff, you did a good job. You're hired.
We want to
What-
keep them.
What are the next steps, Counselor Zaret, for
I
this?
have two motions prepared, President Clemens, I'm happy to make them unless if there's no other comments.
My only comment, and I think we've already talked about this 157 times, which is why I've forgotten. We do not need a public hearing for this, correct? No, I'm seeing shaking heads. I will go with that. Barb's the head I wanted to see. Okay, so no. Okay, then go ahead, Counselor Zaret.
Okay, the first motion, in the form of a motion, I would like to ask to authorize the mayor to negotiate and enter into all agreements and execute any and all instruments relative to the grant or receipt of certain easements and other property rights as detailed in the easement agreement entitled Agreement of Perpetual Grant of Easements and Plan of Land entitled, quote, Proposed Easements, quote, revised February 4th, 2021, as provided to the City Council on February 11th, 2021, and attached hereto and incorporated herein, which agreement and perpetual grant of easements is necessary for the redevelopment of 1 Ferry Street and certain public infrastructure. And I clearly did not write that myself.
Second.
Motion is second to grant the mayor the authority to go work on the easements. I can't rephrase it appropriately, but any further discussion? Barbara?
Dan Rist,
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild,
Hi.
Owen Zaret,
Yes.
Peg Coniff,
Aye.
Salem Derby,
Aye.
Erica Flood,
Aye.
Omar Gomez,
Aye.
JP Kaczynski,
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Passes.
Oh,
Counselor
I also
Zaret.
have a second motion. In the form of a motion, I would like to ask the City Council to authorize the mayor to negotiate, execute, and record perpetual easement agreements over real estate owned by the City of Easthampton to Eversource for the provision of electrical services to buildings at 1 Ferry Street in the approximate areas marked on the plan labeled Exhibit A. And Exhibit A was attached as the planner showed us.
Second.
Motion is second for the Eversource easement. Any further discussion? Counselor Zaret?
I guess my only quick question is, is there, that Exhibit A, is that shared to the public in any way?
It was in the packet, was it not?
Yes.
No, Exhibit A was
Or the
not.
revision?
It was not. I just want to make sure that the public gets to see it somehow. Like, can we upload it or?
Wouldn't it end up, well, it'll certainly be in the minutes. I guess
It'll be in the
we could put it
minutes. Okay, that's
yeah.
perfect.
Well, I don't think, I mean, the actual exhibit won't be in the minutes. It'll be referenced, but.
Will that be, Jeff, is that a document that will reside on your website?
I mean,
You need to make it public in some way.
Yeah, if it's a matter of doing that, I'm happy to do that. That's not a problem. The Exhibit A, so I guess if it's not, yes, the answer is yes. I'll do whatever it takes. I mean, Exhibit A, it's not the final document. So that shows the approximate easement areas, and that's what is helpful that council is doing, is allowing this vote to happen now, and then the fine tuning with Eversource could take 2 months, and I think that's what the developer has asked for, and what council is doing is helping speed up that process. So the final easement document is the one that would be the most important for the most to make public, or upon request. Obviously, it's available, but
Okay,
I'll put it
sense.
on the planning website. I think it's fine. It's not the final document. So
Okay. And yeah, that's fine. I think that's fine.
Okay.
Councilor Kwasinski.
Madam President, I just wanted to ask Councilor Bragg how soon that would go up on the website. And if not in the next 2 weeks, then I would be inclined to make a recommendation that we include it as part of our minutes. Jeff?
what I can do is what I would like to do then is take generally the packet that was provided in your February 17th packet and add these. I can add the motion language and this exhibit into the packet and then post it on the planning page with reference to Ferry Street project.
That answers my questions. I don't know if any other counselors have further questions about it.
Did we have a motion in a second? We did, yes. No further discussion. Barbara?
Lindsay Rothschild,
Yes.
Owen Zaret,
Yes.
Peg Coniff,
Yes.
Salem Derby,
Aye.
Erica Flood,
Aye.
Omar Gomez,
Aye.
JP Kaczynski,
Aye.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, Counselor Zaret. Thank
Wanna
you,
thank
Planner Bag.
Counselor
Thank you,
Bag.
Mike Michelle. Excuse me. Thank you, Planner Bag and Mike. It's a
That's
rough
a
crowd
good-
to try to keep organized here. Let's try to remember, stay on mute until recognized. All right. I'm looking at you, Counselor Rist. Okay, now we will move on to finance. Counselor Rist.
My apologies. I
No,
just think
you're
it's funny that we have a new counselor every meeting. The Finance Committee I have to ask my committee members when we can meet. Normally, we meet at 5 o'clock next Wednesday to discuss the new business. Unfortunately, the mayor has not unfortunately, the mayor has just announced that she's got a thing for the Tibetan flag at 5 o'clock. And at 6 o'clock, there is the state of the Easthampton she's doing. Counselors may want to attend both. So I'm wondering if counselors and Barbara and Jen can meet on Tuesday at 5 o'clock. The meeting should only last half hour. It's not a lot of discussion. Is that possible for my fellow counselors on the Finance Committee?
Yes.
Tuesday at 5 o'clock?
Yes.
Then that will be our meeting next week. It's an unusual time just to accommodate the mayor's needs. I would like to read into for new business a first reading. We have a supplemental appropriation for $61,450 to be transferred from the cannabis stabilization account to be transferred to the following accounts. Uniform allowances, $3,750. Fire medical expenses, $2,150. Fire education and training, $2,100. Fire building and equipment, R&M, $4,200. Fire equipment, $5,800. Fire repairs to vehicles, $850. SCBA maintenance and repair, $250. Uniforms and equipment, $2,250. ALS EMS overtime, $3,000. Ambulance callback overtime, $12,000. Professional and technical services, $5,000. EMS supplies, $9,500. Maintenance agreements, $10,600 for the following purpose: to fund the above requested line items based on the increased service demands for EMS, provide annual service and maintenance on EMS and fire equipment, and provide initial medical exams and personal protective equipment for new personnel. I will now read the next motion, which is a supplemental appropriation request from the Community Preservation Act for the following appropriation: $15,000 to be appropriated from the CPA reserved for historic preservation, $15,000 to be appropriated to City Archives Record Survey Phase 2, $15,000. The amount requested for the following purpose: to hire a contractor to implement recommendations based on the initial Phase 1 survey, inventory, index, and rebox archival items, separate all records that can be destroyed, and create a database of archival records to be saved. I move that these two items be sent to the Finance Committee for review.
Second.
Motion is second to send the aforementioned supplemental appropriations to the Finance Committee. Any further discussion? Barbara?
Owen Zaret,
Yes.
Peg Coniff,
Aye.
Salem Derby,
Aye.
Erica Flood,
Aye.
Omar Gomez,
Aye.
JP Kaczynski,
Aye.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
Dan Rist,
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild.
Aye.
I
Motion
further
passes.
move that these two items be set for public hearing at 6:15 on March 17th.
Second.
Second.
Motion is second to set a public hearing for March 17th. Any further discussion? Barbara?
Peg Coniff,
Aye.
Salem Derby,
Aye.
Erica Flood,
Aye.
Omar Gomez,
Aye.
JP Kaczynski,
Aye.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
Dan Rist,
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild,
Aye.
Owen Zaret.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Madam President, that concludes.
Thank you, Councillor Vest. Public safety, there is no report, I presume. Appointments, Councillor Rothschild.
Hello. We met, I don't remember when we met. So we met on Tuesday, I think. Was that yes? I can't know. Anyway, we met. And we met with the appointees, Louise Jacobs and Matthew Wow. And I had sent them both emails with the link to our meeting, and we're trying to be more solicitous about inviting people to come and meet with us. And they both came, which was great. We also sent them a list of questions they could answer in person or an email or both. So Louise Jacobs has been appointed by the mayor to the Council on Aging. She is very much looking forward to serving on the council. She had, from her lived experience in Easthampton, she understands the barriers to participation. She feels like she'll bring a good perspective. And she has, I think she's here now. She's an active member participant in our city. So we met with her, and then also Matthew Wow. He was on the Easthampton Cultural Council before, and he understood that there was kind of a lineup of people who wanted to be in that council. So he kind of approached the mayor and said, "Where can I serve? Where are there openings? Like, where can I be useful?" And she suggested the Zoning Board of Appeals. So he's looking forward to learning about that, about zoning in our city. But he is a business owner and a resident, and so he will bring those perspectives to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So I move to confirm the following two mayoral appointments: Louise Jacobs to the Council on Aging with a term expiration 12/31/2022, and Matthew Waugh to the Zoning Board of Appeals with a term expiration 12/31/2023.
I'll second.
Motion is second to approve the two mayoral appointments. Any further discussion? Barbara?
Salem Derby,
Aye.
Erica Flood,
Aye.
Omar Gomez,
Aye.
JP Kaczynski,
Aye.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
Dan Rist,
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild,
Aye.
Owen Zaret,
Yes.
Peg Coniff.
Aye.
So we're continuing to hone in on like a process that we can define and to the appointment process. So we're going to be meeting next on March 11th at 3:30. And thus concludes.
Councilor Rothschild, you have your discussion on Council Rule 11H will expire before we meet again. Do you want to extend that?
Yes, I moved to extend that. How long? 90 days, is it? Or
30, 60, 90. 90 is
I'll
good.
extend it 60.
Second.
Motion is second to extend the amending Rule 11H 60 days. Any further discussion? Barbara?
Erica Flood,
Aye.
Omar Gomez,
Aye.
JP Kaczynski,
Aye.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
Dan Rist,
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild,
Aye.
Owen Zaret,
Yes.
Peg Coniff,
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. That's it. Okay. Ordinance, Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Madam President. So the ordinance subcommittee met on the 23rd of February, and we started our discussions on the new affordable housing proposals, and we also kind of concluded at that point the request for cannabis delivery. So at this point, I would like to make a motion to move the zoning amendment for cannabis delivery back to ordinance subcommittee and to the planning board.
Second.
Motion second to move the request for the zoning amendment for cannabis delivery back to the zoning board for a, there was another one, both ordinance and zoning board public meeting.
Ordinance and yep.
Okay.
Planning.
Planning board.
Any further discussion? Barbara?
Let's see, Peg Coniff,
Yes.
Salem Derby,
Aye.
Erica Flood,
Aye.
Omar Gomez,
Aye.
JP Kaczynski,
Aye.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
Dan Rist,
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild,
Aye.
Owen Zaret.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Wonderful. And so I do want to announce that our next meeting is going to be March 9th at 6 p.m. And we're going to continue our discussions on the affordable housing. And we also, I want to just remind people, we have a joint public hearing with the planning board on April 13th at 6:15 to discuss the solar proposal. And I believe we do have some new business. So I would take this opportunity to move the request to amend city ordinances chapter 2 holidays per Indigenous Peoples Day resolution.
Second.
Motion second to move the new ordinance for Indigenous Peoples Day to the ordinance committee. Any further discussion? Barbara?
Salem Derby,
Yes.
Erica Flood,
Aye.
Omar Gomez,
Aye.
JP Kaczynski,
Yes.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
Dan Rist,
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild.
Aye.
Owen Zaret,
Yes.
Peg Coniff.
Aye. Motion passes.
Wonderful. That's all we got.
Thank you, Counselor Derby.
Owen has a question.
Oh, yes, Owen,
Do
Counselor.
we need to set a public hearing for that ordinance for next time?
It's
Oh,
an ordinance, so I would go with
For
yes.
the holidays?
yeah, I didn't even. Yes, please. I would like to set a public hearing for our next meeting, 6:15, for the Indigenous Peoples Day amendment to the chapter 2 holidays. Sorry.
Second.
Motion second to set a public hearing on March 17th at 6:15 for ordinance for Indigenous Peoples Day. Any further discussion? Counselor Rist?
I heard that there might be some need for legal opinion on this change as it relates to state health. I don't know why, but is that necessary, Salem?
I'll leave that to the wisdom of our president.
I just, it's an ordinance and I don't know.
Do you have the wording of the ordinance? Is it, okay, if you could just, we
in
may
the
not.
packet.
Is it the same resolution, that whole thing?
No. It's the very last page in your packet.
Okay,
It's a very small ordinance change, but I just
all right,
know that there was some legal questions about it and I was wondering if that was necessary.
okay, all right. We'll get that done before March 17th. So we have a motion and a second on the public hearing. Barbara?
Let's see, Erica Flood,
Aye.
Omar Gomez,
Aye.
JP Kaczynski. Okay, Tom Peak,
Aye.
Dan Rist,
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild,
Aye.
Owen Zaret,
Aye.
Peg Coniff,
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye. And thus concludes.
Thank you. Okay, Rules and Government Relations, Counselor Peak.
Thank you, Madam President. We have not met since our last meeting. We are meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. We are going to be discussing definitely the remote participation adoption proposal. I know that Councilor Zaret and President Coniff had spoken a little bit about the 5C proposal. So depending on what sort of resolutions have been there and people's availability, we might discuss that too, but we're definitely going to talk about the remote participation proposal. I don't have anything that needs a deadline extension, so thus concludes.
Thank you. Do you want to, Councilor Riff?
Just wanted to ask if Councilor Flood would be attending that meeting tomorrow night because it is the remote you put in.
Yes, of course. And it's
Thank
6
you
p.m.,
very
right?
much.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. We moved it from 5 to 6 and I never.
I just got that note and updated my calendar, so I'll be there.
Okay, my bad. But yes, happy you can still do it.
Okay. Tom, do you have anything you'd like to update us on the Ranked Choice Voting Committee?
Yeah, so this is actually exciting. We won't be meeting this in March, and the reason is that we are going to actually have our vendor come down for a training on, I believe, the 31st, that some members of the committee will be attending, and we're actually going to run through the, the soft, like, with some example ballots and test some things out. Because if that works and if we can do everything perfectly and it fits with the ordinance, then we will feel good to move it forward, to the council. But I just, that's the exciting news, is that we won't be meeting, but we will be doing the school training.
Great. Will you be doing a testing of statistical ties?
That would be a question for the vendor, but I do see Barb has her hand up.
Okay, Barbara.
I did want to add on to that the vendor did make up some, sample ballots. I actually asked if he could really use a past ballot that we have used to make it very appropriate to how our ballot is going to be mixed with plurality and ranked choice voting. So he did that, and I thought it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And he also told me that hopefully we can also get some members of the state elections division to be present for the testing / training, because they need to certify the process, and it makes sense for them to come and be present at our testing and training, because it's a great place to check out the process. They're also hoping to bring a high-speed scanning machine for the ballots, because they want to have that certified too. So it could be a really neat day.
Wow,
yeah, we're going to set up probably 5 machines, hopefully upstairs, and probably run about 250 ballots through. So it should be a really good test.
Nice.
I know it's late, but does anyone want to see the ballot?
Sure. No, Dan's like, no. Well, can you email it to us?
No, you got to take a look at it. It looks really cool. Just
okay. Show us. Dan risks notwithstanding, the rest of us want to see.
I need to be able to share my screen.
All right. I will make you a co-host. What's another 5 minutes, guys? Come on.
It's not even going to be that.
No. Good nerdiness. Oh.
Understanding that it will definitely probably be tweaked some. This is just a first mock-up.
Like it.
Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
That's all.
Yep.
Nice. Okay. Thank you.
That was worth it. Thank you.
Is he being sarcastic? Senior tax work-off we've already discussed. Ordinance review. Councilor Rothschild, any updates?
Yeah, so we met yesterday and discussed a couple more chapters. It was great because Barb LaBombard here showed up, and it's really helpful. So I'm going to definitely be trying to get people that are relevant to the chapters to show up, because she gave us a lot of context. And as a committee, we learned that there was a big issue with junk collection in the 1940s, according to our ordinances, junk hawking and things. Anyway, we are going to be, at our next meeting, we are going to be coming up with a framework to create a presentation for the council. So that can either be on the first April meeting or the second, whatever you want, wherever you think it's appropriate, President, in terms
Both
of
are wide open right now, whatever works in your schedule.
Let's do the first one. Let's do the first meeting in April.
Okay.
And that's it. Our next meeting is March 15th at 5 p.m. and that's Monday.
And thus concludes.
Great, thank you. We've done old business, new business. Any other topics?
Move
I
to
will take a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second that.
Barbara.
Oh, who are we at? Omar Gomez,
Aye.
JP Kaczynski,
Aye.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
Ian Rist,
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild,
Hi.
Zaret,
Both eyes.
Peg Coniff,
Oh, sure, why not?
Salem Derby,
Aye.
Erica Flood.
Aye.
Motion passes, meeting is over. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank you. Have a
wonderful
good
week.
night, everybody.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.